Well, I think we're live. Yep. Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. Welcome to Distilling 101, Distillers Chat. And I'm going to give everybody a chance to get on here while we do the link thing. Gotta share the links out there so everybody can see. Bear with me while I share them. They limit us how many we can share, so it doesn't usually take too long. Just gotta open them up and share it till it makes me stop. So I hope everybody's doing well. Saturday night. What's going on? What's everybody got running and mashed in right now? Bear with me if y'all can chat amongst yourselves. I can't even. Comments. Okay, had to remove Rumble. Rumble was not working. Hope everything else is working though. So we had to remove the Rumble. It's things have changed and it's not doing like it used to. So we're gonna have to make some changes to our login for them. I don't know why everything has to change so much. If you do, why not just make it backwards compatible? That way, the way you used to do it also works. You know, too much to ask. So I hope everybody had a good time Wednesday with Big Easy. That's always fun. He's a great guy and good to sit and chat with and talk to. Very knowledgeable, and they have a great show on Mondays. Hope y'all go visit them and check that out. They're a lot of fun. They have a lot of great people on too. They, looking through the slideshow I made, man, they've had a lot of great people on there. Patrick Heist, though, man, that was huge getting him on there, man. That guy's probably the most knowledgeable person that I know in distilling. That dude's a freaking wealth of knowledge. He runs Wilderness Trail and Firm Solutions. For those that don't know who I'm talking about, check him out. Patrick Heist, brilliant guy. Yeah, he likes that science stuff too. Yeah, he's a very, very intelligent, great guy. I need to get to know that dude. Very, very knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable guy. Also, they've had quite a few other prominent people on. Quite a few. Danielle Part. Very interesting. Always interesting to listen to her. A lot of real legal distillers too, from some distilleries around there and some wineries. They've had some pretty cool cats come in there that own some wineries up there in Ohio. Trying to think of the name of one in particular that has some pretty cool people in it. I'm trying to think of where the owners are at. My mind, I'm trying to do two things at once, and that doesn't make it any easier, but I'll think about it here in a minute after I get done doing all this. But I gotta get this out so everybody can see it. And then we can get down to business. Get down to the nitty gritty. Yeah, you gotta check them out. Have Sean Rigsby on the show. I don't know. I guess we talked about that. Sean Rigsby and Matt LeMaster and Uncle Joey, Jason Kendall. All four great people. And that's all I can share. So, oops, one too far. Okay, got it. Just a second. I had a spot saved. Just give me a second and I'll find it. Okay. Goodness. Man, how did it get so dirty so quickly? Jeez. Yeah, keep me a little thing of heads around. Make great glasses clean. I can't stand shit on my glasses though, man. That bothers me. All right, now I can see the comments. What's going on, Redneck? Sacramento in the house. What's going on, Gordon? What's going on, Kenny? Got some Uncle Jesse's simple sour mash. Awesome. Got to keep an eye on your pH. No water. Did you add sugar and water, or just running what you got going on there, man? So you mix some backset from a rum run back into your grains. Interesting. That'll make some pretty good flavors. Very little water. So when you do that, you got to check your pH. A lot of times, what I'll do is I'll add sugar and water together. A couple of pounds of sugar to a gallon of water, and use that kind of as a syrup to boost your sugar content, and then pour backset on it to thin it out a little bit, and to increase some flavors and lower pH. So you can kind of regulate your pH with that backset, so you don't usually have to use it all. The more you can use, the better. I guess you could mix your sugar with the backset. That eliminate water. Anytime you can eliminate using water and use something else, that has flavor in it, like an apple juice or something or anything, as long as it doesn't have preservatives in it, you're adding flavors. Because water just takes away. That's all water just takes away from the flavors. What's going on, Richard? Hey, Mark, what's up, brother? Glad to hear. Maybe we get some shots drank tonight, man. We did. Yeah, I guess we did put quite a few away last night. I felt it this morning a little bit. And I didn't. My Call of Duty, man. I was getting on. I was half drunk trying to play, and I'm not so good when I drink, man. What's going on, Curtis? What's up, Mark? You got to work tonight, I guess. Awesome. That's right. Here we go. Yeah. Here's some information, Jeff. Oh. Sammy, I don't want to drink all Big Easy peach. I drank quite a bit of that last night. I got a little bit of my peach left here. And start off with some of Jeff's 135 proof. Man's trying to kill me. This weeded Bloody Butcher sour mash. Good stuff, man. Proofy. I'm going to proof that down a bit. 135 proof. Just get you, man. It gets you. 1 pound of sugar. That'll work. You know, I used to do 1 pound of sugar to 1 pound of water, or 1 gallon of water to 1 pound of cornmeal, and that works fine. Works just fine. And bread yeast. That was my recipe for better 20 years. You know, sometimes I'd fancy it up a little bit and do make some changes and stuff, but not a lot. Yeah, we had a lot of tornadoes blow through here last night. What's up, brother? Oh hell, you ain't late, man. We're just getting started. We're just now welcoming everybody and going through and saying hey, and so you're not late at all, brother. What's going on, Morgan? That's right. That's right. Start the show off right. That Taco Bell was hell. Yeah. I'm gonna have to quit that, man. I tell you, especially when I drink and get that Taco Bell and eat too much, and I wake up, man, I feel it's starting to get me worse than it used to. Friday night for you. Oh, you're off tomorrow. Awesome. So you can hang late. Awesome. We got a cleaning run. Been running 15-gallon clean run. Been running electrical element now for close to 2 hours. Temp at only 150. Does this seem right? No, the temp's gotta, crank it on up. Are you at high right now? Or full? Let me know what size element you're running and what kind of power supply. Get the shower. All right, brother, hurry back. What's going on, Mr. Dance? Everybody that know that's Bill Dance's brother right there. That's my brother Dave. Hey, Greg. How's it going, brother? Is that Illuminati symbol there? Or is that a military patch? I think it's a military patch. No, it is Illuminati. Got the big eye. There used to be an infantry patch. It was similar to that. 3-color. Yes, they did. London and Somerset both. Southern Kentucky along that little path got hammered last night. And I heard St. Louis got a bit too. I hadn't really watched the weather news this afternoon. I just saw a few articles on Facebook that I shared. Anytime there's storms up here, I share it I got a lot of old friends live all over the country, and they don't they hear little bits and pieces about what goes on, but they don't get to hear everything. So anytime there's flooding or something like that, I'll flood my Facebook so they can get caught up with all the news, because they don't get a lot of news out there in Arizona, Florida, and all that. They don't get a lot of local stuff for us there. On a high 110 volt, came from Tiger Shine. Seems like taking forever. How many gallons did you say? 15 gallons. How many? Does it say how many watts the element is? It shouldn't take too long. And I know some people that run gas and electric combined. I mean, you have to really be careful about the heat coming up around your pot and getting around any kind of cabling or wiring or anything like that. No, the element itself, does the element tell you how many watt, or did it say how many watts it was when you bought it? Got some lactose infection in the sour mash before I started it. Is that good or bad with a 1090 starting gravity? It's generally not as good when you start them early like that. You really want them to come. I mean, you can start it early and let the lactose build up and do its thing, and then kill it off, and then might have to add some more sugar because see, lactose it competes with the yeast for the sugar. So you'll have both of them in there, competing for it, and it'll lower your alcohol content, right? So that's the only reason that it's not good to get it early is because it competes. Now, so I've heard in the past that some people, get it early intentionally and let it run its course, then they kill it off, then they add sugar, and then do their regular ferment. I don't know what the benefit to that might be. There may be something chemical. There might be some chemistry changes there that might be beneficial. Uh, I've never really researched that much, but there's always a possibility of that, or they might find a little, maybe some flavors that they want to sit there to play with that. That make a big crinkling noise right in front of the mic, but it might have some chemistry in there that's beneficial and create some unique flavors that they want to reproduce. And if they, maybe they did a run and this happened and they got it early and they did this to kill it off and then fermented it and it's the best thing they ever drank, or something really unique that they thought they could market, and so they do it intentionally that way. There's always people looking for unique ways to make flavor, and that's kind of last week we were talking about um, using nutrients, or Wednesday, Big Easy and I were talking about using nutrients, and he's not a big nutrient fan, but and I can see because most people tend to overdo the nutrients, or if you use grain, you're not used to using them because you really don't need them. But in a lot of things, it's really vital for the chemical reactions that take place, and for the esters and flavors and things like that you get. Um, they you know, do use things that have yan and fan. You probably heard me talk about yan and fan. That's something it's good to research and learn more about. Yan is yeast assimilable nitrogen, and it's basically NH3. It's ammonia, and it's just like feeding your plants. It's what we're doing. Basically feeding a yeast is like feeding a plant. And the more balanced the nutrients that it needs, the better the plant grows, the healthier it is, the prettier the flowers, blossoms, or fruits and everything else are better. And it's the same with the yeast. If you feed that yeast what they want and make them happier, yeah, you can grow that tree without it, but what's you're not going to get as much fruit, or the flowers aren't going to bloom as much, or you just have little small blooms, and the plant looks sickly. It'll still grow and it'll still do it. And a lot of people think that, um, you know, and I'm not talking about Big Easy, I'm talking about a lot of people in general. And I've seen a lot of people like this in the shine community that if it works without it, it doesn't need it. And that's not necessarily the case when you're, making a mash and trying to create unique flavors and have a better quality. I mean, a lot of people use the same ingredients and follow the same recipe, and a lot of times a lot of that stuff is already in there. If it's doing great and it's really really good, a lot of that, a lot of those nutrients and stuff, essential nutrients and stuff, are in there. But like in grains, anytime you've got anything malted or anything like that, yeah, you've got plenty of yan and fan and plenty of other things to eat, and it it'll work just fine. But getting back to your lactose, I get off on tangents sometimes, but I do want to get back to Yan and Fan and talk more about that here in a minute. But that may be what's happening is you can either let it run now and then try to kill it off, and I'm sure, but you'll have to add maybe some more sugar because it's going to consume some sugar. And how far do you want to let it go? How much of lactic acid buildup do you want to get? And got to watch pH when you run into this, and so, but it is best to answer your question. It's best to get it when it's at the end of fermentation, and all. But what you can do now is you can scrape some off, and what are you being about head? Oh, that's funny. Um, and I didn't even see that yet. But Mark, try to figure out how many watts that is. I'll try to do a couple of questions time here. Anyway, back to your lactose. You can skim some of that off and put it in a jar. Um, Loose fit the lid because there might be some stuff still going on in some of the other liquids that you get. You don't want to build up a lot of pressure in your jar in the fridge. You want it just kind of blow off if it can. Just don't tighten the ring and don't put that cap on tight. Or you could just put like cheesecloth over it and put the ring on, but without a cap, on your mason jar. But let it breathe a little bit. But there could be until it gets real cold, then everything will stop. Um, but yeah, save it in your refrigerator, and that way you can add it after. But after it's done, you might want to make sure to clean your fermenter out really well. Anything that you use to clean it, don't. This is one good reason not to use like wood paddles or wood stirrers and stuff because the pores in the wood. I mean, it's great to store your yeast in. A lot of people don't know it, but you get a lot of yeast blocks. You burn the yeast blocks when you use spoons and stuff. If you don't sanitize them, a lot of the stuff gets in the pores, and if it's got sealant on it, then you really don't want that either because that lacquer will come off in the alcohol. Okay, because alcohol is like a thinner for lacquer. So yeah, you don't want to get lacquer. So it's best to put the wood utensils in the kitchen where they belong, and use stainless or something that's not porous. I'm sure there's a lot of plastics and stuff that are just fine. A lot of uh, HDPE tools and stuff, but I try to stick with stainless and stuff. But anyway, but store that lactose in that and clean everything real well and sanitize everything. That way you can control the lactose and decide when it comes in. Now you're going to get lactic acid in most all your fermentations. That's just another one of the organic acids that are created. There's acetic acid, citric acid. Um, there's a bunch of different acids that are all created during the fermentation process, and that's what causes the pH drop. So when you get that pH drop, if you got those, we talk about keeping those uh, shells in there, the oyster shell, the crushed oyster shells, as those acids tend to accumulate more. The calcium carbonate, it'll start eating at that calcium carbonate, and it'll help buffer those and keep those in control and in check because you don't want them to get too much. But yeah, you don't want any wood. Um, so uh, let me see if I'm not sure. Do you have Camden tablets or potassium metabisulfate? Let's see. Yeah, I can. Okay, yeah, potassium metabisulfate. Um, we'll see. A lactobacillus is basically a lactic acid bacteria. It's lactic acid bacteria is in your fermentation. It comes in on a lot of the fruits, vegetables, and things. It's just a microbe that's in there. It's a part of the fermentation. Um, but yes, you can use the potassium metabisulfate wheel, or Camden tablets, that most people call them Camden tablets. Um, those will kill it. So if you want to go ahead with it and let it run its course, you can tell by the smell, and you can see how far it goes, and let it go as far as you want until it starts smelling a little better, and then you can kill it off with the potassium metabisulfate, and then you just follow up that with check your gravity again, get all the sludge out of the way. You have to get liquid only, and check your gravity again, and then you can. What's going on, Brian? Hey, Michael, what's up, brother? Um, you can then check your gravity again and see if you need to add some more sugar, because it'll consume some sugar while it does its thing. But it's best to get it at the end. That way you can let the alcohol consume as much of the sugars as you want, and then right at the very end, you can allow the lacto to finish up. And some people, if you have like a fermentation that gets stuck and it's like 1.020, if you have some lacto in the fridge and you want to, it's not going to finish out because maybe it's unfermentable, maybe the lacto can actually utilize it. So, throw some lacto in there and see if it can consume what's, not fermentable, um, and finish it off. And that'd be also a good way to use it. And because, if your alcohol's done, you're not going to get any more alcohol production. Uh, then why not? Other than having to clean everything up again, that's the biggest pain in the ass with lacto is every time you have to keep things pretty sterile, because you have to control and add it at the end. But I guess if you get lazy and you do, like, maybe that's what those other people do. They just got lazy. They didn't clean it. It always started out with that, and they just went with it. But yeah, you can use potassium metabisulfate and kill that. Hope Mark can tell me what wattage is it, if you can tell me. Or did he? He might have. No, yeah, check it and see how many watts. It should say on the order, how many watts you have, and how many watt is the maximum that you can run on the box you got. Check that and let me know. But yeah, a couple of hours for 30 gallons. That's yeah, hour and a half. Should be pretty reasonable. Hour, would be good. Hour and a half. Couple is getting there. If it's just at 150, yeah, that's coming off the worm at 175. Ooh, that's high. Jimmy Red, wheat, barley, and rye. Yes, sir. Now save those sweet waters, run it all the way down, and save those sweet waters to proof it down with, maintain some of that flavor, man. But what kind of setup you running, Scott? Do you have a column, or running a thumper? What you got going on? Get that high proof stuff. It's high proof. Everybody in the beginning, I will say, a lot of people strive for proof, and they tend to think that higher proof means better, and in a way it is. Like for production wise, you get more higher proof off, more that you can proof down, but really there's only X amount of alcohol in a mash. And if you can get it to come off smoother, along with some of the water that's in the mash that has a lot of the flavors, it's better to stretch it out that way and let it proof itself down if it distills, if that makes sense, instead of waiting until later to proof it down, because you get a lot of waters from that back set and from inside the still with your mash, and you're carrying a lot of flavor with that. So if anytime your numbers coming off the stills lower, that just means that there's more water, okay? Because you're getting alcohol. So if you can sometimes keep that to 130 to 145-ish or so, in that range, especially for like whiskeys and brandies and all your grains and things. You'll generally get better flavor. Now, that's on a pot still. There are columns, specific types of columns that are fractional that will allow you to remove different volatilities of alcohol and distill it fractionally. So meaning heads will come off through one, go into one pipe. Hearts will go into one, tails will go into one. Then you'll have, in between, you'll have a lot of ethyl acetates and that, things like that. Acetaldehydes, a lot of different congeners, I guess, different things that boil off higher alcohols, propanols. There's lots of tons of different things, but they'll have kind of a specific boiling point, and when you fractionally distill, you can separate components a little easier than like in pot stills. But in fractional distillation, that's a pretty complicated column setup, and usually, these big guys do that with a continuous still and fractionally distill on a column with a continuous still, and that's big money. But yeah, try to. Tell me what kind of setup you got, Scott. Yeah, how's that festival going down there, guys? What's going on, Brian? You down there? I saw you. I got on Facebook right before the show, but I did get in time to see Wayne. I saw Wayne set up right next to you. Let's plug my buddy Wayne. So I saw Wayne set up right next to you guys. Everybody, Jim Parker and April and you and who all? Who all? There's looked like a pretty good crowd there. But good question, Greg. And it's up to you. I would probably, you don't have a lot of choice at this point. But I would definitely skim some off, save it, let it run. You get potassium metabisulfate. Greg, if you do a lot of wines and stuff, it's good to have that on hand anyway. It's not really useful as much for whiskeys if you're not going to do wines and brandies, but if you can do a lot of wines and stuff, it's good to have that kind of on hand as well. Yep, well, 2000 acetone. Yep, that's ethyl acetate. Yeah. Let's see here. Do we figure? Where's my buddy at? What? I want to figure out what wattage you got, man, and we'll figure out what's going on. Let's see if I'm missing any. All right. Glad I didn't miss your question. First time fermenting using this airlock system. It's gurgling once or twice per minute. Think it may be done pH 5. Perfect. Oh, PS. PS 5 days in. All right. As far as time wise, I wish there was a set time, but there isn't. There's so many factors involved that determines how fast or slow something's going to ferment. It's I could make a class on that. Probably should. Lots of things can cause it: temperature, pH, yeast, the type of sugars that you're using, whether it's simple or more complex. There's just so many things involved, and what you're fermenting. But airlock system, it's good to use. Make sure you get plenty of headspace. When you use airlocks, a lot of times you'll have the lid closed, so it's not easy to see down in the bucket. As if you have it open, you just look in there with that lid on. If it's not, it's hard to see what's going on in there and how far that cap's sneaking up. But you want to, every few times a day for the first, 3 or 4 days, just gently push that cap back. We talked about that with Big Easy on there. And keep it moist, and get some of that flavor and pull some, good starches that are out of the grain and that out. Let it strip everything out of there and let the alcohol get in there and kill any kind of bacteria. It helps make it moist so it traps more CO2. So definitely good. The airlocks really come into most important play though when you're doing brandies and wines, or beers, anything that you're not concentrating the alcohol in, like brandy, it would be fine, but you're doing a fruit fermentation takes a little bit longer. Generally, the airlock system is used to A, keep out wild yeast, and B, keep out bugs and things, and keep out um, things that can cause your mash to turn to vinegar. And those are acetals, and trying to let's see to make mother of vinegar. Um, all it takes is cellulose yeast and the bacteria is called an acetobacter. And once you get this acetobacter combined with the yeast and the cellulose, which is all three in a lot of your brandy, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's hard to make it." It's not if you get everything in there that's essential, and it takes time. That's why generally you don't have to worry about grain fermentation so much because you can let the flies with the cetobacters just keep landing in there and 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 landing in it, and it's not gonna, it may start a small infection, but as soon as you distill it, you're killing it. It's just not gonna carry over. But you don't want to, you're not gonna get a vinegar started in that short a period of time. It's kind of like a Scooby, it's a gelatinous looking uh, substance. It looks a lot like a Scooby. So if you've done fermented teas, you understand what I'm talking about. But it, um, it takes a while to build up. That's why in some of your wines and if you do wines and I guess beers too. I've never done a lot of beers, so your beer makers can correct me or not. Um, I've never done a lot of beer making. I've made beers with my grains to make whiskeys, and a few of them, I'd pull some out and drink it. Um, but for the most part, yeah, it's not much of a beer drinker, so they can probably fill you in. But when making wine and something that's going to go into a secondary fermentation and have some time under fermentation, it's great to have that airlock. It's good to use just as a practice of cleanliness, and it's certainly not going to hurt anything to use it. But if you do like a banana or something that has a huge cap and you don't leave enough room, instead of just leaving something loose fitting over the top where it can just bubble over and hit the floor, if you got that thing sealed and you got that one little hole in the thing and it blows it'll blow that little air trap off there, and next thing you know you have pressure shooting through a little hole, and we know what that does, and it gets all over your ceiling. It sprays everywhere. So airlocks are great, but be careful and make sure you always leave a huge space for caps, especially with stuff like bananas that just get huge anyway. But keep a watch on it. Keep an eye on things, and you'll know when it's done by your hydrometer. That's what the ultimate test is your hydrometer. You see that starting gravity 1.080. You think it's done, clear the cap out of the way, get some clears in your graduated cylinder, put your hydrometer down in there and test it, and that, you can use your fingers, like we were talking about with Big E, get your fingers in there, feel it, stick it, if it does it get sticky or not, smell it, taste it. It's not going to hurt you. This is beer or wine we're talking about. So another good reason to be sanitary. If you're not going to drink what you mash, you probably shouldn't be mashing it. I've seen a lot of people, "Hey, I'm not going to drink that nasty stuff." It's good shit, man. You should be wanting to drink it. If you're making it right, it should be drinkable. either as a beer or as a wine. So if it's something you don't want to drink, you might have to rethink it. You come back and see me. We'll work on it. But yeah, just keep an eye on things. Using turbo. First time fermenting using airlock. So what are you fermenting, Michael? What's going on, Dave? What's up, brother? And if anybody asks you questions and you've got a follow up, follow up. And if I miss a question and I'm asking questions that were after you, ask me. I've been known to miss, and I think sometimes I go back and I see stuff, and I swear to God it wasn't there before. So I think sometimes stuff gets put in there because I swear that wasn't there a minute ago when I scrolled past and I went and saw it, and I'm like, well, damn, that's a good question. And Scott, tell me what you got ferment, brother. Oh, wait a minute. You did. Yep. Oh, yeah. You were going to tell me what kind of steel you got going. Yeah, let me know what you got. What you got ferment, Michael. Thanks, brother. Yeah, it's been a few years growing. Awesome. Cake steel, different steels and clear to 180 proof cloudy. Yep. When it gets to about 80 proof, you're starting to hit your tails. Probably you're into your tails. And when it gets cloudy, you're getting infused oils in there, and you're getting stuff that normally in a higher proof, the alcohol can keep it dissolved and clear. But once the alcohol loses its solventability, I guess, with the addition of water, it loses its ability to be a solvent or as effective a solvent. So a lot of those things that it had kept dissolved now kind of precipitate. You tell me what I'm drinking. They precipitate out of the solution, and it starts forming, cloudiness. But it's a lot of oils and things that do that, and it just tells you getting into your tails. Just keep collecting. Um, if you want to, sometimes it'll get oily, cloudy like that, and then it'll start getting clear for a little while. So you may get through your oil and jar those separately, and then run your tails on out. And a lot of times, but just catch all those tails, save them, and use them again. But from 80 down, it starts getting cloudy like that. Start collecting, but cloudiness isn't always a good test for tails. You need to start, going by proof is one indicator, and watching your proof and how it goes, and then a sudden drop, that'll be a huge indicator that you're probably towards the end of your hearts. Definitely at the end of your hearts. And smell, taste, because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just stays clear the whole time. I've had runs that never got cloudy at all. Quite a few. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's just how much oils are in there. So sounds good. Yeah, just collect those tails, and next round just throw those tails right in there, man, and run it with your mash, whatever you got in there, or put it in your thumper, and you'll get higher production. Yeah, it should say on the element how many watts are, brother. Copper steel co with whiskey helmet, thumper, and worm. Okay, that's why your proof is up. With the whiskey helmet, you're getting a lot of reflux with your helmet. That large, some it's shaped different ways. A lot of times it's just a horse head, but a cone. Um, Trying to come up with the geometric term for that. but I'm getting too old to remember shit. But anyway, all that surface area, your vapors hitting that, and it's in contact with the air outside it, and it'll form kind of a reflux. And a lot of that, yeah, we used to all strive for that high proof, but that reflux from that will cause a lot of it, your water to drop down and the alcohol to go on through, uh, which raises your proof, and then you hit your thumper, which is causing a redistillation, and you're leaving a lot of water behind in your thumper as well. So anything that causes you to leave water behind, like we were talking about earlier, increases the proof, but at the same time, it can decrease your flavor. That's why a lot of people like to use the jar rigs after a thumper to add that any flavor that gets stripped out by the thumper back into it. And you can use infusions with that, or you can use your mash, I guess, but that's pretty diluted flavors versus something more concentrated, which generally would work better there. But that explains it. Have you tried just going straight from the whiskey helmet into the worm? A thumper, it has its place for sure, but I think the thumper became most popular, like Mark and I were talking about, to get that high proof stuff, bragging rights, but also to uh, increase production and you run tails in it to increase your production. That's what most people used a thumper for back in the day. Was you just ran your still as normal, and then you added that thumper with tails in it, tailings or whatever, and you would get more liquor out of it, so it increased your production. Um, but as far as flavors, I think they actually kind of remove some flavors, because anytime, like I say, you're leaving water behind. So unless you're infusing um, in your thumper or have some jar rigs after it, I think for like whiskeys and brandies, I think it's best to run straight to the worm, man. Just run that flavor straight out, and or jar rigs. Add some jar rigs. If you want to do that, if you want to add more flavor. But I think if you can come off that steel at 130, like we were talking earlier, to 130 to 45 proof, which you can off a horse head like that, into a jar rig to add your flavors, or you don't have to be jars. It could be copper. There'll be a bunch. Everybody's been doing, some instead of I've been talking about for the last month or so, copper jar rigs. It was basically, a copper vessel, a gallon, half gallon, with the same things a jar would do. Infusion poured on it, in and out with a drain. And that way you don't have to remove it. You can just hit that drain it, refill it. You don't have to hit my bypass and all that. And you can just, kind of do everything on the fly. But something like that would probably be better than a thumper. Now thumpers do have, are good. Um, it's great to run your tails in. And if you have that jar rig, you can add some flavors, add more than gets stripped out actually, and just increase production and, you know, so catching drips at 130 right now. Was FG your final gravity or your first gravity? You talking about your gravity when you started at 1061? Yep. Damn, I'm behind. Yeah, well, that's yeah. Sitting by the fire pit, sipping the second attempt at an apple brandy, double distilled with this alembic, and very little apple came through, proofing down from 168 to at 148 now. Um, I'd keep going for your brandy, man. Take it down to 90. But what you can do is keep adding. If you're using water, you can add some water. At this point, if this isn't something that you're marketing or putting legal on the shelf, and you just want some good flavor, there's absolutely nothing wrong with adding some apple juice to proof it down with, right? You know, who gives a shit if it's got a little yellow in it? If it tastes good, you know, it's apple pie, motherfucker. It's good. They drink it. You know, it's just better than adding water down to 80 or 90 or 100 and then, you know, trying to do something with it, make a mixed drink out of it. But I know used to everything had to be clear, but things are changing. People don't care as much, and it's all about the flavor now, which is why I drink a lot of my brandies as a wine, because I found that a lot of good wines get made out of brandies, and brandies. An excellent wine doesn't always make the best brandy. Makes damn good brandy, but sometimes things are better off as just a wine. Because that flavor, man, it's just you lose a lot. Went from 15 keg to 53 stainless. Any advice? Keep the keg. Don't get rid of the keg. I'll tell you why. Once you run that 53 gallons down, you'll have a couple gallons, 2 or 3 gallons of pretty good shine. And if you want to proof that, probably 160 proof or 100 or so, if you want to proof that down to 80, you're going to double it. That gives you at least 6, gallons of 80 proof. So you can proof it down a little bit more, mix it with a mash, and run it in that still and refine it. You know what I'm saying? So you can strip in that big one and run it in do the second run in that keg once you proof it down. So that'll be pretty good. Or you can use that keg for a thumper too. It can be pretty versatile for you. But I'm pretty sure Fieldbilly can make you a rig that can sit on top of your ferrule and have the stake going down to the bottom and then up around and out through a T. I know he can make those. I'm pretty sure he's got them. If not, he can make them. But yeah, they make pretty much anything there, or other makers may have them. It's not hard to make them. But yeah, that way you can just add it right onto your keg and run right into run right into that from your new stainless. But yeah, it's that sounds awesome, man. And you're also going to have to get a bigger fermenter, because 100 gallons of 100 gallons, of mash, you're going to have you at least a couple 50-gallon fermenters, to get at least halfway full to do it, and leave you plenty of working space and head space and everything. So yeah, it's a good size one. You won't have to run as often. You'll get pretty good, pretty good amount out of it. I'd recommend getting a small barrel, maybe a 15 gallon barrel to age some in if you plan on doing that. You get pretty good amount. After a few runs, you'll have quite a bit accumulated to fill some barrels with. But going in about your barrel's about 120 proof should be good. What about adding some Olive Nation apple concentrate to my new mash to wedge more flavor in? Any thoughts? Absolutely. If you have a thumper or a jar rig, it's best to add those kind of flavors there than like in the mash itself. So if you can infuse some of the flavor into an infuser or through a thumper, it will help pick up those flavors there. But the distillation process is basically, when we distill water, we're going through the distillation process to remove impurities, right? And get pure water, right? Distilled water. The distillation process does that. It takes out a lot of impurities. And in a lot of cases, a lot of these impurities are things we want. So it's like, we have to kind of defeat the purpose of distillation. That's why I force it to go lower proof, is that way you can force more flavor into it, if you can follow me. Lower proof, and more flavor instead of higher proof, and getting that full distillation, because it's like a column with bubbles, with it'll scrub and it'll clean and it'll get all the flavor out, and it'll just produce alcohol, those bubble plates. So you definitely want to try to do it in such a way that it'll add flavor. And the best thing you can do is just, especially if you're coming off high proof like that, Dave, 168, definitely would benefit. I mean, that's a lot of reflux out of that alembic. And if you could go into a jar rig off that, I'm not sure. What do you have at the end of it? Is it tri-clamp set up, or is it just wedge over top of the other one and you paste it, or is there a compression fitting? Making plain old wine with juice concentrates, apple grape. Awesome, brother. I make a lot of wine. I've made a lot of Welch's wine too, man. And people don't realize you get that Welch's 100% with no preservatives, none of that shit in it. You got to look for potassium sorbate, potassium metabisulfate. What are some of the others? Ascorbic acid, things like that are preservatives. Look for those, because if it has concentrates of those in it, it's going to be the yeast is going to have trouble. That they don't get along. But if you can get that 100% with no preservative added, that makes some of the best damn wine, man. I'm telling you. There's been people win like wine contests and stuff with just like Welch's wine, and it's crazy. What's the name? Oh, Greg. Let me scroll back here. You've lost me. Oh, potassium metabisulfate, if that's what you're talking about, to kill the lactic acid and lactobacillus. Yeah, the lactobacillus is potassium meta bisulfate, sulfate. A lot of times they'll call it a bisulfide, but there's several names for the same thing. That's just the easiest one for me to remember, but there's a couple of names for it. Some of them are kind of confusing. But it's Campden tablets, Campden tablets, that are used a lot in winemaking. A lot of people sell it as that. If you buy it by the tablets, you're paying a lot more for it, because somebody's just taking this powder, compressed them into, tablets, and then, and they, I guess they take a teaspoon per tablet and make a tablet out of it. That way you can dose it properly, right? And then bump the price up. So if you can just buy a bag of potassium metabisulfate, it's usually a lot cheaper. Just get the food grade stuff and you'll be good to go. Mott's apple juice and added frozen concentrates. Yes, sir. Yeah, the frozen concentrates are great to add too. Yeah, I use those a lot. Anything you can concentrate those flavors. Yeah, absolutely. And those frozen concentrates do well in your infusers too. Just thaw them out, warm them up before you put them in. And get them good warmed and hot. That way, when you put them in those jars, they're not going to crack. But yeah, you don't want to put them in frozen. But yeah, thaw them out and use those concentrates. They make really, really good infusion solutions. Little secret there. It's a lot cheaper than buying, some of that concentrated infusion stuff too, because some of those concentrated flavors that you buy, flavorings and stuff like vintners, for wines and stuff, those jugs ain't cheap. But if you can find any of that vintner's fruit stuff that's maybe past its expiration date, and a lot of these places can't sell it. If you know any of the people that own the place, instead of letting them dump it, just say, look, I'm distilling this shit. This ain't going into wine, bro. So, we're going to get rid of any kind of bad bacteria that may be in that fruit. It's going to be long gone. We're going to be boiling alcohol. So a lot of times maybe they'll let you have it, or let you have it at a cheap price instead of dumping it. What's going on, Neil? Yes, sir. Love me some apples. That's awesome, brother. All right, let's see. An airlock explosion 3 days ago. Yeah, those could get messy, man. But if the airlock doesn't get blown off, it'll help contain it. I've blown some airlocks off, and if you make wines, and you can make some mistakes making champagnes and sparkling wines as well. Um, Anytime you do that, you actually got a little micro fermentation going on in the bottle, which is why a lot of your champagne bottles will be caged. They'll have that cork caged with that cage on there. That's why they put that on there, so it doesn't blow the damn lid off, right? Those will happen, when you start. But if you can learn how to kill the wine, kill all the fermentation using potassium metabisulfate or the potassium sorbate. Um, I think the sorbate adds a little bit of off flavor for me, so I tend to use the metabisulfate. I've tried the sorbate; I didn't like it as well, um, but it will that'll kill off all your yeast. Well, the sorbate will make your yeast neutered. Basically, they can't reproduce, so at the end of their life, they die and no more are created. And that's a good natural way for them to go, and a less stressful way for them to go. But I don't like the flavors that the sorbate adds. So, but the metabisulfate is just kill, and they might stress it a little bit, but I don't think the off flavors from the stress was as bad as the off flavors from the sorbate. Some people may not notice the difference. Um, but maybe it's just that time I tried it, it was just unique, and I really didn't do it much after that. Now I try to get to you guys. I'm a little bit behind, 8:30, and it's 9, so I'm about 30 minutes behind. I get a little long winded, but I want y'all to hear all this. I want to answer your question as fully as I can, so you understand why I'm giving you the answer and not just the answer. I don't want just simple short answer. I don't want to just say yes and then not tell you why, or no and not tell you why. Um, Hell yeah, man. We'll get it together, man. I'm learning too as we go along. So you like kombucha? Yeah, there are a lot of people liking the doing the fermented tea thing. I've got a niece that's into that. She consults with me a little bit, or used to. I guess she's mastered it now. She doesn't need my help much anymore, but she's pretty smart. Yeah, she's a nurse. Going to distill this after fermenting is done probably will be sacrificial. Let's see what you got. Well, let me scroll back and see what you got going on. First time. Um, so is this a grain or sugar wash, or what you got going on, brother? That's what I was just curious. Was it a grain fermentation? And you said you started at 1060, or it's presently at that number. That's what. Well, I wasn't sure about. You said FG, and usually what we try to do is use SG as starting gravity and FG as final gravity. Um, but oh, we've got a wise guy in here. Ah, shit. Bye bye, dude. There's certain trolls and certain things you can say I look over, but when you come in with that kind of shit, yeah, you just gotta go. So, somebody, I put up with quite a bit. I'm all about freedoms of speech and stuff, but when it comes to stupid shit like that, they have nothing to contribute. Anyway, yeah, my throat's getting a little bit dry. What the hell? That's so good. Yeah. I agree, brother. Did Michael tell me? Oh, he did tell me. Grapes and apples. Awesome. That's a cool combo. So 1060 is your starting gravity? Or is that what it's at now? With a banana mash, I take it up to about 1080. Most of my brandies and stuff, I'll take up to 1080, 1090-ish, depending on what it is. Like, for example, strawberries, they don't have a lot of sugar. So when I add the sugar, I generally tend to take it up a little higher. But if I get a good fruit that has a lot of sugar in it and I don't need to add much, then I won't add as much, and I'll probably go a little bit lower, maybe 1080. But my grains, I generally take to 1060, 1070, whatever they come out at. Generally, if they don't convert very well, which happens, there's always variables that causes, shit to happen to all of us. Mine don't all, mine aren't rainbows and shit rainbows and all that. Some of my fermentations do the same thing. Some of my conversions, don't do well. Sometimes, I get a batch of cracked corn that's stale as shit and, just doesn't do well, So, it's hit and miss for everybody, but I'll just bump it up with a little dextrose. But yeah, with banana mash, 1080 should be fine. But also with bananas, you can use the amylase. There's starch in bananas. So you want to try to convert those starches and get those sugars out as well. So you can use your alpha amylase, your high temp. So heat your bananas up, cook them up, and put that high temp in there and use that liquid glucose, or if you got powdered amylase, put it in there at 160 and heat your banana mash up to 160. That'll kill, all the wild yeast, all the bacteria and shit off of it anyway. It's good to do that. And then, use that powdered amylase alpha, and it'll help break up some of those starches in the bananas and get you some more sugar out of it. And then use some pectic enzymes and then a little glucose amylase as well, and you'll get a lot better production without having to add as much sugar. What I'm trying to get at, and that way you'll end up and you'll have to learn things as you go. That's why I say if you can document these things each time and say, I did it this way and I added this amount of sugar, and then my final gravity was 1090, which is a little more than I wanted. So next time I know to do the same exact thing, but add a little less sugar, right? So it's fine tuning. It's everything, all your recipes and the process is basically a starting point for you. It should be a starting point. Don't ever rely totally on them until you finalize it, and then work on it as you go. So, a little too sweet this time. So next time I'm going to add a little bit less sugar. So next time it rolls around, you try it out. Wow, this was definitely improvement. What can I do now to make it better? This is, this time I did it, it's 1080 and 1070, and it turned out better. It's not as hot. Production was decent. Maybe next time I'm going to add tails and see if that impacts my flavor much. And if it doesn't, then I know I can start using more tails and get a little bit more production, and get more alcohol produced. Or I'm just going to save those tails. Those tails don't work real good with it. It kind of diluted my flavor, a little bit more than I wanted. So maybe next time I won't use tails, or. So it's all a working process, and always fine tuning things and trying to make it better. And what can I do to make it better? What's going on, Roebuck Mountain? I'm waiting to get my, I tried my little seed. I got me a little seed starter from Walmart and planted all my damn pepper seeds in. I guess a little bit early, and they came out real thin and just died. They didn't do a damn thing. It looked like a little piece of grass coming out of there, man. Actually, it might have been something in the dirt that wasn't even, a pepper, but none of them came out. It was too dry. I got too dry. I'm too busy. But I do have a guy every year that I've been buying them from. I don't know if he's going to do it this year. I'll have to get on Facebook. I bought some off Marketplace. I used to found him on Marketplace, but he sells all kinds of different peppers and tomatoes for $1 a plant. Usually they're like a 6, 8 inch, 10-inch plant for $1. That's going to save me a lot of time and trouble. I don't have like acres to plant. It's a patio garden in pots. I've been thinking about tilling up a little section of yard, but I don't know. Because it does suck having to water and fertilize each individual pot each time, and I can just kind of go up and down and get it all. It is a pain in the ass doing the bucket farm, but very well produce. I produce quite a bit. We got enough to make us tomato sauce, tomato pastes, marinara sauce, spaghetti sauce, salsa. With all the tomatoes and peppers, I usually get a poblano peppers, banana peppers, poblano. If y'all haven't tried poblano peppers and you like green peppers, try the poblanos. They're like a lot like a green pepper, but have a little extra spice and a whole lot of different unique flavors. I'm loving them. So I do, bell peppers and those poblanos. Yeah. And grow some yeast too. Absolutely. That's awesome. That's great to hear, brother. A lot of musky dime wine. That's awesome here. So I guess the grapes will be doing well too then. So all the vineyards there are doing well, I hope. What's going on, Monty? Dust. Let's see. Let's go back, brother. Cake steel, different steels, clear to 180 or clear to 180 proof gets cloudy. Now, you talking about when you're proofing it down, or you talking about what, Dustin? You talking about when you're taking your alcohol and you're proofing down 100, and when you proof it down at 80, it starts getting cloudy. I can explain that too. It's the same principle. The same thing's happening. But also sometimes if you start puking over, if it's like happening in the middle of a run long before it should be happening, sometimes it's just puking over, and it's puking water and mash along with it, which plummets the proof, and it'll get cloudy, like your wash was. So it could be puking coming forward. But if everything's right and it's just getting cloudy on its own, it's usually the oils, and it's usually when you're getting into tails. So I look forward to your answer. Matthew went from 15-gallon keg, 30-inch column, pony thump keg. Cool. 40-foot copper worm. Awesome. 18.5-gallon flake. Awesome. To a 53-gallon, 4-inch tri-clamp to 6-inch copper cap, 1.5-inch lin arm to your keg for thumper. Jar rig. Awesome. Man, that sounds like an awesome setup, man. If you're in the militia, post a pic of it. I'd love to see it. So what is this? What kind of 53-gallon container, stainless container? What was it originally, like a big milk type can, or a shipping kind of container? I got a couple of 80s that were but they're shaped, nice, just like a steel. But they were actually used originally for shipping sensitive things that were probably used in the military. Let's just say that they were packed in and embedded in this and in this stainless thing, and they would pack them and strap them, and when they receive them, they get it all out, and it's just packing material inside there around these sensitive parts that they store them in stainless. Oh yeah. I've grown a lot of from seed, but this year and last year I just bought off that fellow on Marketplace. I found him, and I think I'm just gonna do that. I'm so busy, but I would like to get me some other things started. I do other things by seed. I do lettuce and cabbage and radishes and put onion sets out and little things like that. Then little beds I make. Reflux, yeah. Now, do you have a kind of a column with bubble plates for reflux, or now if you're talking about jar rigs, I think two or three work fine, but I think if you're going to do one of these multiple like eight, you really need a steel big enough to drive that shit. It's eight on a keg, lipstick on a pig. But eight like on a 53, yeah, that's going to be a little bit more like it. Um, but yeah, people tend to get over it. If you ever watched the Moonshiner show when they found out about jar rigs, I guess they find a lot about that, a lot of that shit from us on the social media groups, because a lot of the things we do, we'll see on the show 6 months or next year. But remember when G and M added all those fucking had a canopy full of jar rigs and it built up so much back pressure about blew their fucking keg, blew their steel up. So yeah, you don't want to get too carried away with them. When you get too many, you have to have something with enough ass to push them. And if you're still in big enough, you're going to have too much back pressure, and you're going it's going to be issues, potential issues for sure. Yeah, I used to use a thumper a lot more than I do now, and then basically I used it for tails, just to increase production. Wasn't a lot of infusing back in the days. We didn't have an infusion port on there. I mean, somebody I'm sure probably did. It was just wasn't common. But now that you can add your little infusion point on there and add some flavor, it gives the thumper an additional use. It's not just for increasing alcohol and throwing tails in there, to increase production. It actually serves more of a purpose, with flavor, as far as flavor is concerned. But I agree, I don't use them unless I'm infusing or running tails and stripping and running tails and just trying to build up a bunch of alcohol to do it like a neutral. Purple tomatoes, interesting. I've seen some of those. Now, they start out purple, they stay purple the whole time, or do they mature purple and start green? That'd be interesting to see. I've never grown them. Yeah, we'll run it without the thumper and compare the two. If you have some of the same exact mash, that's awesome. That's perfect. So you can run it with the thumper and set it aside, and then run some without the thumper, another run, and label those jars just the same way, except like number two, run number two and then label it, and then compare the two, and see, I got him, man. I didn't scroll down far enough to see what he was typing until I got down there, and I'm glad you mentioned it. It drew my attention to it, but yeah. Yeah, but that'll be a good idea. Definitely try them both and see what happens. Yeah, we get some people like that every once in a while. The internet wouldn't be the internet without trolls, I guess. Just stupidity. First try it fermenting. Made a badass sugar wash. Mixed it down with apple cider. Awesome, brother. That's awesome. So this time you're doing a little apple and grape and apple. Well, I hope it works out well. Now, I do want to know though, still is the starting gravity the 1060, or was that what you ended at? Perfect. Yeah. I'm sorry I didn't see him sooner. I hope nobody got. Yeah, you can't. You gotta be thicker skin than that. Well, I'll get them as soon as I see them. A lot of times I'll let them troll. If they're just trolling, they're making jokes and being silly. I'll let them go. But shit like that, I don't tolerate. What's going on, Slacks? I got rid of it already, Lisa. I just hadn't scrolled down far enough. I was about 30 minutes behind, so I didn't get a chance to see it. Awesome, brother. Well, we got to get it worked out. But maybe find a way to go from your limbic into a jar rig, to add some of those flavors. 165 is pretty. That's a good proof coming off there. Have you ever tried running it at different temperatures to see if running it a little hotter might be a little lower proof, and running it low and slow generally puts out higher proof? Kind of, you can sometimes vary your proof that way on an limbic, which really, there's no other way to make any adjustments other than just adjusting your temperature. But if you can put some jar rigs on there, it'd be pretty cool, or some copper jar rigs. Cold crashing. Yeah, that's a good way to clear up your mash. A lot of people like to cold crash. A lot of people take the next step, make a little applejack out of it. Just be careful drinking that applejack, man. That shit'll give you the worst hangover you've ever had. What's going on, Slacks? Miss Lisa. What's up, Kenny? Sugar wash turbo yeast, smelled like strong wine, tasted like champagne. Awesome. Well, that's interesting. You can fortify some corn runs. Now, usually, if somebody's fortifying something, it's like a wine, and using that to kind of juice up a wine to get more flavors. But you're going to put this in some corn runs. That'll be interesting tasting, brother. Let us know how that works out. Well, you better be paying attention, buddy. Yeah, I don't consider rambling. I like to explain things. I don't want to just answer a question. I want to educate. I want to explain why. Just a yes and no. A lot of times, is that really what you want? Should I do this for my mash? No. Okay. Should I tell them what they should do, or should I just say no? You should do it and just go on to the next person. I like to ramble, and explain things and give the whys and the hows, and that's what us scientists like to do. We got to know why and how and what makes it tick and how to make it better, man. I agree. 9 o'clock. Oh my God, I'm 20 minutes behind. Sorry. I'll try to. It's hard for me to answer fast. All right. I need to clear up my alcohol. I was aging with dried cherries. I juiced them to get the alcohol out, but ended up making everything cloudy. Coffee filter didn't work. Well, I've seen people put it through the little water purifiers, what do they call them, you get the ones with like the little teapot with the little filter you sit in the top of it and just pour it through them. I'm not sure what the hell the brand names are. I don't use them anymore, but we used to have a couple of them here. I don't know if I can't remember what the damn brand name was. But yeah, you can just use those kind of filters. Um, but if coffee filters aren't working, um, one thing you can do is you can kind of put it in the microwave for a few seconds, or 20 seconds. Don't let it get too hot where it's boiling. You definitely don't want that happening. But we're just warming it up a little bit, and that will definitely um, take out some. It heats the oils up, and it gets the alcohol hot enough to where it will solvent those again. And sometimes it'll maintain that, but it's basically a lot of times you just got some oils in there that have come out of solution. And um, go back and see what. I'm trying to scroll back and see where we were last talking. Yeah, I can't even see it now. Anyway, need to clear up my alcohol. I was aging with dried cherries. Okay. One thing what you're going to have to do, Michael, is you can let if it's probably what I think it is. Just let it sit. Just let it sit for a long time, and a lot of those sediments will be a white substance down at the bottom. So just let it sit for a month, and it'll help. The processes, actually chemical process, go on, esterification, all that good stuff will happen. Um, and then just take a small. If it's like in a jar, if you ever seen somebody use oxygen, those green tubes, those work well. Silicone tubing works fine. But cut a section of those tube off and use it just to siphon it off, and let the tube get like that far from the bottom where those sediments are, where it won't pick up those sediments, but it'll rack everything else off. And you should be able to just let it do that. Just be patient. Brita was the word I was looking for. You can run them through a Brita filter, but that takes out a lot of your flavors and a lot of stuff as well. So best just to let it settle, or like you were talking, cold crashing it. Just put it out in the cold, put it in the refrigerator, let it get good and cold. Freezer if it's still got enough alcohol in it where it won't freeze. Um, may cause a lot of that to settle out faster. That sounds awesome, man. Thank you, Abigail. Does that mean cheers? What language is that, Slante? Is that Italian for cheers or salute? I think it's the same thing as salute, but in a different language. I've got a friend of mine that says that. I haven't talked to him in a while. I am sipping on. Well, I was drinking some Bloody Butcher Sour Mash. Now I'm back to my 100 proof peach. It's sweet, but it's not real peachy. I used a different flavoring on this. I may end up using it, mixing it with something else in another run to get some of that sweetness to carry over into something else. I don't know. Yeah, no commercials is definitely the best. Yeah, we don't do commercials here. We're just one big infomercial. That's all we are. Jaeger and Red Bull. What's going on, brother? Yeah, we're having a good night. Sorry I'm so late getting all these, but I'm getting caught up. I'm getting through some of these. Have I ever had a run go from heads to tails and skip hearts? No, no. I've. I guess if you have a really low gravity, if you don't start out with enough and you're just basically running really low, that's possible to happen. Or like if you're running on a maybe a gallon steel, is so tight the cuts, it's really hard to do. That's why the bigger the steel, usually the easier. It's hard to make cuts on a little steel. I would say you probably could on one of those air steels, um, but no, I can't. I've never run anything really low starting gravity, because if I saw it real low, I've always bumped it up. I never just said fuck it and ran it at 1030 or some shit, and or just fermented it at 1030 or something. So I've always bumped it up and made it, have alcohol content I want to start with. That's the purpose. But if you ran something real low like that, is possible, I guess. Um, be something interesting to try. Did that happen to you, or just curious? Awesome. Oh, so it's a nice one then. Oh, that's cool. Awesome. So it wasn't just some stainless vessel that you converted. All right, that's even better, man. Awesome. Yeah, you got to watch. That's one thing that I see a lot of, and we had a visitor in I guess, a few weeks ago. A troll came in and said, "Oh, this guy doesn't know anything. Everything he's saying is a lie, and all this stupid shit." So I did a little research on the guy. He had like 4 followers, and he did try to do a distillery, and he failed. Go figure. And so, instead of coming in and trying to, share what knowledge he had, if any, I think a lot of people try to get it in their head, I'm just going to open a distillery. If they can do it, I can do it. And I think that's what this dude did. He just learned half of what he needed to know and opened up a distillery and failed. And there's a lot of people that do that. A lot and lots of people that have big dreams. I made this one run. I don't need to learn nothing from you, Santa. I know all I need to know. I don't need nothing else from nobody. I made this one run. It's good. By God, I'm the top of the world. I'm a master distiller. I'm opening up a fucking distillery. And they do. They get investors. They go mommy and daddy, or they got a deep pocket and they spend it and open up a distillery, and then they realize there's a lot more to it than they thought, and there's a business involved. It's not just, if you can run, that's great, but that's just anybody can make good liquor. Marketing it, selling it, promoting it, there's a lot more to run the business in a distillery than just, you know, making liquor. So yeah, it's it's easy to pick up a lot of good deals at auctions, and there's a lot of auctions going on right now. And the reason being is a lot of people going with high hopes and aspirations, and it's a tough business. It's hard work. Distilling is not easy. Mashing and all the heavy grains and all, packing this shit around, stirring and constantly working and moving. I mean, yeah, once it ferments, it's sitting there, but you just don't wait for that. You're on the next one. You're on the next mash. You're constantly going if you want to make it work. And it is a lot of work, and as a result, you see a lot of auctions for distilling equipment, and you can find some good deals. Yeah, you got to make that ochre shine. What's up, Jeff? Column, 3 bubble plates, and a sight glass, 55-gallon boiler. Awesome, brother. That's awesome. So is that a 4-inch, I'm guessing? Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen some pretty steampunk looking fucking setups, man. I've seen some pretty cool. Let's see here. I might have something to show how I set mine up once. I've got this was the bever that I cooked it in the wintertime on the stove. It's pretty. Pretty fun to use and easy. Let's see, where did I put that? Not there. Not there. Well, I don't know where the hell it is. Why does this always happen? I think better organizational skills is definitely what I fucking need. I never know where anything is. Fuck, I just did it the other day. I used it the other day. Where is that? Damn it. Well, shit, I'll find it. I mean, I don't spend too much time looking for it. It's hard to tell where the fuck it could be. Here it is. No, I'm just kidding. I wish. Yeah, I wish that was me, huh? Yeah, it says dream time. Yeah, that's a dream right there, buddy. Look at that shit. Yeah, yeah. No, let's see. That's funny though. I wish that was mine. Let's see. I'll find that some bitch. Just give me a second here. I've got to move it though to where I can find it. That way I can explain it. It does require a little explanation when you see the picture. You'll know why. Tell me it's in here. Maybe it's in recent. No, fuck. That's all the screenshots I take when I'm playing Call of Duty and all those big wins I get in those 20 bomb games. And it's full of those, and I hope it's not in that mess because I'll never find it. Let's see, here we go. Well, that's just odds and ends. Oh, wait. I know what I did. Let's see. I sent it to me from my phone. So let me go here. Let's see if I can do it this way. Come on, man. Okay, getting warmer. I send a lot of stuff. Okay, here we go. Save image as, and I'm going to put that where I can get to it. Class. Put it podcast pics. Well, I'll put it there too. Yeah. All right. Now I can find it. But here's a invention. I said it's like a little micro distillery. Um, just 1 second. And I don't care if y'all imitate this or not. I'm not gonna. Just don't take credit for it. Tell you know you don't. Santa's pick. No shit. Let me get that. Okay, that's a little bigger. Okay, here's my beverage setup. This is a little funnel on here. Just don't look at that. You shouldn't be doing that till you get. Anyway, steam boils off. There's two valves. There's one here and one here. Butterflies. So I can open up this one and I can just do stripping. Okay, and I can strip directly off and into a jar sitting right here. or I can run this hose over to, you know, anywhere and into a jar rig or to a jar and collect. But this is just for stripping, right? Or just a straight distillation. Like if I just want to pure pull all flavor, I no water in the deflegmator at all. This is a deflegmator. You can see it's got an output and an input down here, and these are water pipes going there. There's condenser here. There's condenser here. So there's two condensers on this and a defleg. So with the defleg empty, no water, I can come off at about 125, 135, just running straight. Okay. And that's good proof, good flavor. So run a lot of whiskey and brandy that way and get great flavor just straight through. I can put some mesh in here if I'm just planning on doing that. Run it straight through. Awesome. But if I want to infuse flavor, I've got an inline wishbone infuser over here that I've designed. Now I have added a couple of short spools to this so I can hold more infusion juice. This didn't hold quite enough for me. It spent level here and here a lot of times, and it was spitting up. It didn't puke over, but it got close. So I added a couple 4-inch spools here, and now I hold a lot more infusion flavors. And I, of course, can drain it here out of the bottom. And there's a valve up here on top you can't hardly see, but I infuse through here. It's called an inline infuser that I developed. Don't think anybody, I mean, there's a lot of different inline infusers. I've never seen anybody use a trap like that. But if you want to, you're perfectly welcome to. It's just like a bong. You just fill this full of your infusion. You can inject it here. Make sure it's hot, because when it hits the sight glass is going to be about 200 degrees. So you don't want this 180 to 200 degrees. You don't want this, you know, room temperature or cold infusion to hit that. It might break it. So heat it up, but you can dump your infusion juice in there and drain it as you want to out of here. I drain it and I put it in a jar that's down here in a stainless pot. I keep all my jars there. That way, if I look away and it overflows, I don't lose all my liquor everywhere. But I'll take that infusion juice after it gets thinned out, and it's got, you know, some water in it and stuff and some infusion flavors. I'll open this up, and then I'll open up this little valve here, and I'll pour it right back into the pot while it's boiling. It keeps it off the bottom and it won't scorch, and you can add those flavors back in. I've also run before and just turn off the oven, open up both of these, and take all my alcohol, pour it right back in, and do a second run, you know. And it's easy as hell. Just take the heads out and do a second run. And, you know, I can do 3 runs in the time it takes a lot of people just to do one, just with that right there. I don't even need that. But instead of using a thumper, a lot of times now I just use infusion to infuse flavors. And this kind of takes the place of a jar rig. It's the same thing. It's just bubbling through flavor. But instead of using a jar, you know, I've got sight glasses to see when my level's getting, you know, too high. I can drain some out and add some more juice, you know. So that works out real well, man. It's like a little micro distillery. You can, you know, just go straight through here, or you can infuse here, you know, just by throwing the different switches here. So, you know, I can also do like the bypass, but instead of using a bypass, this is called diversion. And when you go, if you go from that in, so instead of, I could go with this open, run off all my 4s and heads. And when I get to my hearts, I close this, open this, and just infuse hearts. See, that's the way I do when I'm infusing. That way I just infuse hearts, and I don't get a lot of acetone shit and getting infused with my flavors, because that, you know, that ethyl acetate, acetone, it has a distinctive taste. And once you get it in that fruit, it's going to smear through the whole fucking run. So why do it? You know, that's my whole point. That's why when I invented the bypass, you know, it was all to get all that shit out, because every time it was putting it in my thumper, you know, and it would smear in my thumper for quite a while through the run. I was getting it, you know, I wasn't getting as much hearts as I needed to, because a lot of heads was smearing into my hearts, you know, because of the, you know, the thumper holding a lot of that shit in there. So that's what caused me to invent the bypass back in '83. And I talked about it. I mean, there may have been bypasses, I'm sure, that were invented. Somebody did something similar with a big distillery somewhere back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. There was just so many different steampunk, like we talked about, setups. But as far as home setups, I've never seen anybody use a bypass before mine. Before mine ever came out. I'm not sure, and they may have. I didn't see it. It was new to me. I invented it just out of thought and logic, which a lot of inventions are. But I'm not saying I'm the only person that's ever done it or the first. I did it in '83. If you see pictures of one before that, let me know. I've not seen it. I've seen a lot of big distilleries divert. They'll divert heads one place and fours and heads one place, hearts into another place, and they'll have like multi switching, and they'll send tails to another for collecting. So they got 3 different places to send liquor, just by simply throwing a switch and diverting the steam to a different, to a different condenser. And a lot of setups that way. A lot of these big setups, like the picture I showed you at the beginning, are set up to do things like that. But as far as on a home scale, nah, I've never seen anybody use with a bypass before I came out with that. So where are we? Yeah, they had a canopy of jars, man. It was funny as shit. It was hilarious. But oh, what have I done? There we go. Yeah, it's funny as shit. Yeah, it takes a long time for each of those jars has to heat up, and as it's getting heated up, all the other jars are collecting and getting, condensing a lot and collecting a lot of liquids. And the higher that liquid gets, the more back pressure there is. And it was crazy. Yeah, it was a funny show. And I like watching the show for shit like that, man. They do a lot of crazy shit on there. Yeah, yeah. If you got to steal the pusher, you can. But really, if you want high proof, I mean, there's a simple setup that'll get you 190 proof all day long. It's very easy to run. It's just a simple column, and you can get 190 proof all day long through it. And it would hardly that. I mean, you have to have some decent proof going in it. You can't just put something with, you know, 10%, out. Well, 10 proof, 5% alcohol in there. You couldn't run beer and probably get 190 off of it. Uh, but maybe, you can probably get some pretty high, mid 180s anyway. But it's called a Boca Cob. Let me pull that up and spell it for you. I want to make sure I spell it correctly. Boca Cob or Boca Cob, Bokakob. That's Boca Cob Design. Let me see if I can pull one of these off here real quick and show you. Um, yeah, here's a decent little example here. Save image. Yeah, save it as a JPEG. Just 1 second. Let me show you guys this. It's you can Google it and check it out yourself. And there's also a lot of places that sell it. I'm not sure if Phil Billy carries them and makes those. I know he could if they took the time, but they're so busy doing normal stuff that they really don't have time to do special order kind of shit. I know Wayne at Ozark can definitely do it, and Peterman and Appalachia. There's a lot of them that do a lot of stuff like this. Peterman probably should do these. Um, I'll just put it here. That one is the same. But here's a drawing of one. Um, okay, this is a drawing of one. And basically, you've got like a deflegmator in the top, but it's how the drips are caught that come off this deflagmator. Most of the drips just come back off as water and drop back down, and you can see that here, a lot coming down. But this catches drips like out just off this little coil, and everything else drops. So it's almost like it's collecting pure alcohol off this rig, and you have to Google it and see how it's set up. But it's amazing how this system works, and it's Boca Cob, and I can spell that in here. Or oh yeah, you can see it right here, BOKAKOB. Look that up and check that out. Now, if you want high proof and you don't want to get a big scrubbing bubble plates and all this other fancy stuff, and you just want high proof coming like off a keg, slap one of these suckers on there, because it's just like a copper pipe. It's like a 2-inch copper pipe coming straight up off your keg, and all this is built into it. This is probably a 1-inch inside a 2-inch, and you have, of course, your vapors going around it. But it's got this little catch, and I've seen some. Actually, I've seen some very crude stills made from like clay, fired clay vessels. They literally boil alcohol in these fired, like the old urns, fired clayed and glazed. Yeah, I can't take that a minute. So it basically is glazed pottery, and when it's boiling, they have it coming up, and there's like a cone inside there, and everything condenses around on this cone. Most of the water and everything falls back, but the alcohol will drip off this little cone. And they got like a little spoon that goes through that and through a little tube, like it's made of like little short bamboo that's been hollowed out. I mean, this is rustic as third world kind of setup, and they pull high proof off that little setup like that. It's a lot like a Boca Cob, and I think that's where he got his inspiration from, was actually a tribal setup like that. It's amazing. But yeah, Boca Cob, look that up. It's a great little column to add, usually like 150, $200, I think. Haven't priced them in a while. You can make them once you get the plans. You just pull up Boca Cob on Google, and it'll throw you all kinds of plans out there and everything you need to know. But yeah, this will make you high proof vodka, and you can make neutral spirits with this, and proof it down and add about anything to it. And if you want high proof and you want cheap, you can do this. If you don't mind spending another $100, you could get a nice 3 or 4-inch bubble plate. I know Lines Brewing. I know those folks. They're pretty good. I think they do a lot of selling on eBay, and they're trustworthy, and they're in some of my groups. But Lines Brewing, if you look them up, they've got some pretty nice bubble plates. Elmo Santa sent you. Might not get you a discount, but they'll know you good people, and let them know I sent you. Might get me a discount, but they make they get a lot of oak steel stuff, and oak steel usually takes a long time to get here, like a month, because it's coming out of China. And now, with the tariffs, might be a good time to get one if you're looking. But they've got them a few hundred for the 3 and 4-inch sight glass. I mean, it's like a big, huge, tall sight glass with bubble plate, triple bubble plates. Yeah, it's nice. But this is a cheaper way to get the same thing without the scrubbing. It's amazing how they work, and they will crank out some really high proof. So, something good. $165 heads, 145 hearts, run down to Sweetwater and temper to 100 to 105. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Now, those tails, you just run them again. Yep, just save them off and run them again, pull those Sweetwaters off, and that's perfect, brother. Can't complain with that at all. Yeah, 145 is a good proof to come off at. Anyway, like I say, 130 to 45. That's in the perfect zone for me. All right, came out at 155, ran it to 100. Sorry, use it as tails. Will it ruin the flavor? No, just when if you didn't make the cuts and it's still all together, that's the beauty of distilling. As long as you don't scorch the fuck out of it or scorch it, you can always put it right back in that pot, proof it down less than 80, and run it again. And do a double, triple, because it just gets better and better as you run it over and over again. Every time you run it, you can pull some of those heads and fours off. And people say, "Oh, you don't need to." They all came off the first time. They do not. They're all the way across your run. So you don't always get them off at the first, unless it's like a sugar wash. They traditionally don't have as much, so you won't have to deal as much with methanol and with heads in your sugar washes. They'll still be there, but in low concentrations, very low. But yeah, you'll get heads and fours all the way across your run. It just dwindles down to nothing. But they're still there, but they're next to nothing. They just the chart just goes down, and then by the time you're at the end, then it's just little bits. But anytime you do that, you run it the second time. If you pull just a little bit off that first little bit that comes off, you'll probably take that little bit that's left in there out, and then you'll just have pure hearts. That's why running 2 and 3 times can really refine it and make it better if you don't distill the flavor out. So if you can continue to infuse it and keep those flavors in there, you do pretty well. Yep, Britta, I'm good. I'm that far behind. Let me scroll on here. Let's see. THC shine possible. Absolutely. That's something everybody does. Anybody that smokes and makes shine, they've always thinking of infusing. I'll tell you what though, the best thing to do is to get you a good jar and a good fatty and enjoy them just like this. That's the best way. But yeah, you can take high proof shine and dissolve all the THC out of your plant material by doing that. It's one of the methods to refining it and making it concentrate. So absolutely. But I will say, if you do that Boca Cob and you use that 190 plus when you do that THC, you'll get a lot better color. You won't get as much green. You really want to get as high proof as possible. So it needs to be 190 plus because water is what makes the green dragon green. So when you mix with a lot of you're getting a lot of uh, what's the fruit, the plant matter. Anyway, you're getting a lot of plant matter over that's causing it to be green, and that carries over with water. That's because it's carrying over in that water. But once you get above 190 proof and you start breaking it down, you'll start getting some amber resins and stuff. And you want chlorophyll was the word I was looking for. So I'm getting old, man. I can't come up with words anymore. But you get chlorophyll with it if you get too much water in there. So if it's like a 110 proof liquor that you're putting in, it's going to be really, really green. But once you get that 190, you start pulling off some amber, true color, distillate or concentrates. Ireland, yeah, okay, good to know. Yeah, you can. I mean, that's one of the methods that they actually use to make concentrates. Is they use pure alcohol to dissolve all the. They use a lot of different things. They use butane. They use alcohol. They use carbon dioxide. There's lots of different methods. I think alcohol was one of the original methods. Everybody did it when I was young. they used to have what was called an ISO2 machine, and you can buy them in the back of these, magazines and stuff. They had advertised a lot of mail order stuff. We didn't have Amazon, so everything's mail order that you wanted. And so you order this little ISO2 machine off, and it would literally, you mix your alcohol and your weed together, your buds, and get all the THC dissolved into the alcohol, and then you would distill the alcohol off and leave just a tar behind. And yeah, that was an early method of making concentrates and stuff, crude by today's standards, but it was pretty fun. It's nothing like BHO and some of that other stuff they make today, though. Yeah, Lisa, you need to watch Mark's and Lisa's. You want to talk about making tinctures and using alcohol and stuff like that to make tinctures and remedies. Need to watch Lisa's and Mark's show. They've got a really good little show, informative on making tinctures and home remedies and all that kind of good stuff. And I think we've got maybe some canning and stuff coming on. I don't know if the girls on Thursday are going to start talking about maybe canning and home preserving and things like that. I'd like to get more education on all these shows that we have, because it's a great platform, and I know the tincture show and the plant show is really good, and you guys can learn a lot. Just jump on there and help. If you know some things, share some things. That's what it's all about. Jump on there and join in and share some things with them. But yeah, I know Dan Gray, he's been wanting, maybe he's started a group about home canning and getting back to, uh, I guess, simple times, and also, for emergency, kind of if the shit hit the fan kind of stuff that you need to know to survive. Being able to can stuff and preserve will be, going to be good stuff to know if you're going to be a survivalist or living off the grid, things like that. And it's very, very good knowledge to have. So tune in, Lisa. You're going to have to tell the days and times. I think it's Mondays and Thursdays at 8, same back channel. So yeah, definitely check them out. First all grain run went from heads to tails to hearts. It was a 5-gallon pot still I used. I was just starting to get into doing this, so I made a lot of mistakes. Actually, we all do, man. I mean, my first like 4 or 5 at least runs were scorched. I scorched the corn, cooking it, and I scorched the, or the cornmeal when I was heating it up and cooking it and melting the sugar in it. And then I probably scorched it because I didn't really rack it all off good. I got a lot of sediments in there and shit, and just trying to pour it off, and probably scorched it, still, distilling it as well. And it was horrible, but I made it and it was cool, so we drank it. But it got better over time. I learned from all my mistakes. Most every mistake you can make, I made. Um, it's just part of the growing process. If you don't have any kind of, I had no library, nothing to go on, nobody to really talk to. Had a Foxfire book, told me the basics and gave me a recipe, but that was about it. And so you learn from your mistakes, and that's the best way really to learn. And no, the best way to learn is to have somebody tell you and not make that mistake. If you can remember it that way, but a good way to remember it is to make it, because you won't forget those, especially if it's an expensive. But interesting dilemma. I've not had that happen to me. I've had puke over, which, I've had a puke on me, which made me, and that could possibly be what happened. Well, is you may not have noticed it or seen it, but sometimes when it foams up, even just boiling like water, it'll always foam. So you can imagine you're boiling a fucking beer, right? So it's gonna foam. So sometimes that foam will carry over, and you won't even see it really, and that'll cause sometimes things to cloud up on you, and it looks that way because you're getting some of your mash in there via the foam, and then that foam mixes with alcohol and gets in the vapor, and then and that happens a lot. That's generally what happens when people are like, oh, we just first started out, it was bubbling good, I was in my heads, and all of a sudden it's cloudy and I'm still high proof. A lot of times you're getting some foam to puke over. And you can add a little butter or a little bit of oil, cooking oil to it. Not regular oil, cooking oil is. We'll bring out the Valvoline, but like a cooking oil, and add that to it. It'll help keep that boiling down. It's the same thing when like when you're boiling noodles. Um, that's why a lot of times women, man, can make some of the best shiners ever because a lot of it's cooking. You're cooking these grains down, and basically distilling is cooking. You're cooking it off. So, don't discard women, man. This is definitely a hobby for everybody. And some of those women can probably outdo us cooking the grains and running the steel. So don't ever doubt them. But yeah, that could have been possibly what happens. Generally, because of the temperatures and things, the concentrations, even though it's not like fractionally distilling, you still get most of your heads and fours at the beginning, right? I mean, even though you're not fractionally distilling, even though we've got azeotropes to deal with and how it, blends all the way through the run and bonds with the water, it still does come off proportionately higher percentage at the beginning than at the end. I've seen some people talking about in certain brandies how there's more heads and the tails than there was in the fours or at the beginning. I've not seen any kind of scientific research on that and gas chromatography to prove it. And it'd be interesting to see and what caused that, but that's not typical, right? Oh, it's not. It's 10 the damn clock, and I'm still 30 minutes behind. Damn it! Damn it, man! I'm late, Mark. Tell me this more often. Yes, sir, Randy. It sure can. Good point. Proofing it down too. Um, when you're proofing it down, and I've done a lot of different distillates, and some of them they got oils, and some of those oils aren't all bad. Everybody's you got all those fusible. Some of those turn into good congeners once they mix with acids and they esterify. So they're not all bad. And some of the alcohol mixes with them in acids, and they're going to esterifize in some pretty good flavors. But that's what's happening is alcohol is a solvent, and it's just like oil and water separate. But with alcohol, a lot of these oils mixes right into them, so they're blended well. They're mixed in totally, and you can't see them, right? Well, as you proof it down, your alcohol loses its ability to keep them dissolved, so they precipitate out of the solution. They were always there. It's just that now you can see them before you could. So that's why we always don't go on site, for things. But yeah, that's what happens. That generally it happens in the 80-ish, 80 to 90 proof. It just depends on how much oils you got. I'd say a bloody butcher is probably going to cloud up on you sooner. And if you can proof with the same temperature that the alcohol is, it helps. Cold water tends to make it. If you use like a cold water to proof with, it's going to cause it to cloud on you sooner. That's called saponification. For those that want to Google it and learn about it. I talk about how it falls out of solution. It's called saponification, and it's the same process used to make butter and other things out of solution that just fall right out that were already there, but they saponify. And it's typical, and there's ways to deal with it. You can when you get kind of low, or when you get to the point where you're starting to sense some oils, flavor and taste, and feel. That's why we always kind of feel too, because the alcohol is kind of catchy, when it real clean, squeaky clean, kind of squeaky catches. Whereas when your fingers get oily, they slide and glide. So always, as that drip comes off, smell it. When you rub your fingers like that, you're feeling to see if it's slick, and you're also causing a lot of that alcohol to evaporate, right? And you can smell it better when it evaporates. So, feeling it and smelling it, You learn how to feel a lot of these oils. If you get that in the top of your jar, you can put like a coffee filter with some charcoal in it. Now, make sure you use good charcoal. Use some good white oak charcoal. Make your own if you have to. Get some staves from your barrel that you're going to use for aging, right? And once they get to where they're not good anymore because they lose their efficacy, then torch the shit out of them, break them up, and use that as your charcoal, right? That way you're wasting nothing. That's the hillbilly way, man. So you can save those and use those to help filter your fusel oils out. That they do help a lot. Going over the charcoal like that, it will help remove some of those oils and clear things up. Again, you can heat it up like in a double boiler. Um, put a jar in a boiling water and heat it up, or in the microwave if you're crazy dangerous like me. Make sure you have a fire extinguisher because if there's anything metal and a spark in there that's sparking while you got that alcohol vapor, it could blow. It could catch fire. But if it does, I warned you. But heating it up like that a lot of time will heat those oils up and help them go back into the solution. But then you need to pour that over some charcoal to help filter them out, or just leave it at higher proof, or proof it down with something uh, else that masks the color. Like put it some good lemonade or something. Mix it up and make something out of it. Just don't waste it. Just because it's cloudy doesn't mean it's bad. And also letting it sit for a long period of time will help clear it up over time as well. You can air them out, on the headsy side, on the first side, air those out, and on the other end, just let time, take care of it. Yeah, I think on a reflux still, especially from your hearts to your tails cut, when you have a lot of reflux, your proof tends to go because I think you kind of string your tails out, because what you do is called compressing your tails. When you get a lot of reflux, you compress your tails into some of your end products. So a lot of times when you think you're still in your hearts, you're actually in your tails because you've compressed them. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I intentionally compress some because those oils can add some really good flavors, especially if you plan on letting it age. Like my grappa, it's dynamite, and it takes 2 years to fucking make, right? So, it distilling and everything you do is time, and it takes a lot of patience, and rush nothing. Anytime you rush something, you're sacrificing. So, but yeah, cuts are pretty easy to make, because I mean it goes hearts, 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 and then boom, it's like fucking it drops from 100, 30 to 80 to 20. It just goes boom, boom by the jar. It goes pretty quickly, and those tails have to be somewhere. So a lot of those type runs are ones where when you do proof some of those lower hearts down, you will start running into some oils, and you'll get some cloudiness. And if you do, you can also just take some higher proof stuff, the hearts that were closer to the heads, right? Your first jar, and kind of mix those two together and help blend some of that out. That'll help too. That's all the art in cutting. Maybe we'll make a whole episode on talking about, or maybe we'll talk about making cuts on an episode and how to do some things like that, because that's a special little trick. How to take those entails that'll have a lot of oils and kind of mix that with your earlies to take a lot of that uh, cloudiness out and maintain the flavor, and then make you able to proof it down, and then add some of those sweet waters to proof it down with. And that's another good thing about using sweet water too, is you tend to get a lot less clouding using sweet waters than just like a regular tap water or spring water. Distilled water is probably the best thing to use for proofing, other than your sweet waters. Absolutely, Matthew. Join the militia. First thing you do, join Moonshine Militia on Facebook. Once you're in there, I'm an admin in there. you can see me on the message, Joseph Justice, my name. So just look me up and send me a request, and we'll add you up. But if I don't add you, remind me, because I get a lot of requests, and it's a lot of random stuff and a lot of random people, and you know I don't want to. Yeah, I'll probably leave it at that. I get a lot of strange people though, man. I don't know who they are, and I don't think they're from watching this. I think they're just Facebook people. Just send out random requests. But yeah, let me know, and I'll definitely add you up, brother. And join the militia. Because a lot of other people in there are pretty knowledgeable, and if anybody says anything wrong in there, we'll get it corrected and stuff. But most everybody in there that answers are pretty knowledgeable. Tom's in there; he knows a lot. Damon knows a lot. I kid him about it, but Damon's pretty very knowledgeable too. So, and Phil Billy, of course. Definitely, little THC ain't gonna hurt a thing. All right, let's see. Actually, Matthew, hand grinding, is one of the best ways to grind your grains. I bought a meal, and there is something to be said for grinding at lower temperature and not letting things get hot, because these meals can get a little bit hot. And there is a difference. There is a difference in your grain once it gets hot, being milled like that versus cold. So, there is something to be said for the old hand crank style, and to keep it cooler. Um, one little teeny way, and I mean, you add up all these little teeny ways to make things better. Um, I just kind of know, but I hope that somebody from in here, if that's you from in here, somebody from in here, Brian, I'm not going to say last name. Let me know. Um, and if you're afraid to say something on the invite or something, let me know. But yeah, high temperature can definitely affect your grains. And a lot of these electric mills kind of operate at a higher temperature. Once you start pumping a lot of grains to them, temp gets up. So, but there's nothing wrong with using the old hand crank. A lot of people like putting a drill on it because they're lazy. Oh, I'm going backwards here. Yeah, I play Warzone. Hell yeah, brother. I am Feral Llama. And I ain't gonna put my activation or battle ID on here, but if you're in the militia, send me a friend request, and we'll definitely team up. We got some other ones on there, but I ain't gonna play with them until they get good, man. I'm not gonna mention any names, Chris. You need to work on your game, bro. It only took us 3 days just to get the damn friend request settled. I played around with them, and I don't. I think it's Chris's first time playing in a long time, or playing on the PC or something. But it was a rough start. But yeah, I have a lot of fun on there. Yeah, that's something you all can talk about on the show for sure, or here. But yeah, well, you gotta go visit your show, man. It's a good show. Into tinctures and all that stuff. Yep, I am the mad scientist. I love science. I always did well in school with it. I always looked at the angles too. I took high school physics and chemistry and biology, and as well in college, organic chemistry and I was going to go pre-med till calculus. I met calculus, and then it kind of changed my career path a little bit. But yeah, I love science and biology and chemistry and physics. I did well in all that, but man, that calculus just kind of blew me away, man. I didn't even know what the questions were. I see a bunch of numbers. It's not like math or algebra. I did well in those, but it's crazy. I never quite understood it. Yeah, it does, man. It works really well, and I'm that far behind. Holy moly. Yeah, yeah, it does look like a little meth lab. It looks like a little mini um, gas distillery. I think you could make gas and oil with that. I'm pretty sure you could. Y'all seen the guy take the plastic and he melts the plastic and makes the oil and then distills the oil into gasoline. It's pretty cool. Little black kid does it, man. It's cool as fuck. I guess he's got quite a following. He does it on. He's got some Facebook videos, TikToks and stuff. It's cool as shit. But he's got him a little distillery set up. He distills this oil and makes gasoline out of it. It's cool as fuck. I got you, brother. Let's see. Let me hit these. Let me get this picture out of here. Okay, yeah, he's cool. Yeah, I saw two. And then the other dude, I'm like, who the hell is this dude? He knows a lot of my friends. So, oh, thanks for the invites. All right, I got everybody. All right, back to school. Here we go. Where were we? Okay. Yeah, it is awesome setup. I've got a bigger still I'm gonna set up and do something very similar. But on that, I didn't show on the. But let me also, well, let me answer the questions, and when I run out of questions, I'll do that. Um, that's awesome. That's all you need. That's all you need, Jeff. Just a pot still and a jar rig, 160 to 70. You don't even need that much. So if you can make it shorter, was it got a pretty good little column before you go over to the jar rig? If you can make that shorter and not carry puke over, but get less free flux and get that down. See, on my steel, the way it's set up, I can get from basically from about 125 to about 185. And I can take it on up higher if I pumped ice water through the defleg and or added a little more column height than what I've got. But I just have no use to do that. You know, if I'm going to do 190, I think I'm just going to make me one of them little Boca Cob columns and because those things are the bomb. You know, they're slow. It takes a while, but it's 190 plus coming off the fucking drip, man. That's impressive for a little, you know, for a keg and a column to produce that. I mean, and it comes off consistently like that. Yeah, it's if you want to make some high proof vodka and some neutral spirits, that's definitely a good route to go. And you can probably get those columns a little cheaper than the 200, I was guessing. I haven't priced them on eBay, I'm sure, but make sure you get somebody with good feedback, you know, that's a reputable builder, or try to find one in the groups that makes them. I don't know of anybody in the groups that makes them, but I know of quite a few people that could. Uh, Wayne at Ozark being um, probably turn out one that's the nicest looking for sure. You know, that dude's wheels and solders and everything is just on spot, man. He he's an artist and a craftsman. You know, everybody, you know, a lot of people can make it and make it work, but he can make it work, and make it look good all at the same time. And so, you know, so can a lot of others. But I'm really impressed with Wayne's work. I can't say enough good about him, man. I'm gonna Google that word before I say it, whatever the hell it is. I'm gonna look it up. I know it's gonna be something funny. I was right. It is funny. See, and I'll never ban people that make shit just troll like that. That's funny as fuck. Thank you, man. You gave me a That's funny. So Google that and learn. I never knew that that was an issue. See, shit like that, man. I'm not gonna ban. That's classic. That's funny as fuck. I didn't know that that was a thing. Oh, it's funny as shit, man. I love it. All right, here we go. Back. Only time ever ran into cloudy issues was trying to proof 140 down using room temperature bottled distilled water. Made it look shitty. Anytime that happens, just keep, when you're proofing down like that, always keep a jar of the high proof stuff to the side or half a jar. That way, when you proof it down to the cloudiness, if the cloudiness is at 80, let's say, you start hitting cloudiness at 80, take some of that high proof and just start slowly pouring it in until it gets not cloudy, and then proof, check the proof on that. Maybe 85, 90 is clear. And that's just what you got to go with if you want to make sure it stays clear. Um, you know, there's people that do the cold filtering. You look on some of the that's also another process. Cold crashing, like I think as well was talked about earlier. Cold filtering is what it's called. That a lot of the big distilleries do. Some say it removes flavors and stuff, but that's just another method to help get some of those sediments down. But a lot of those sediments also carry flavor, like I say. So a lot of distillers don't cold filter before they go into a barrel. They'll put all of that goodness into a barrel, and then after 4 years, they'll deal with what comes out. If it still has some of that, they may cold filter it to get any out. It's got to be presentable, and you don't want floaties in can't have floaties in your jar and all that. So they'll clean it all up, and yep, that's the way to do it. Chlorophyll, not far behind, and thank you. Fuck. Moon rocks, you man. No, that's not at all, brother. What's up, Dan? It's 15, 12 minutes since you said that. I'm sorry I'm behind, but I'm trying to answer questions and scroll through. And Dan, if y'all don't know, has Farm to Bottle, and we're going to be having an episode coming up. I'm going to have Dan on, and we'll do that I did with Big Easy. We'll have him on for a Q&A. We'll sit and talk about Farm to Bottle and talk about all the good times we had in between question and answers, and it'll help, you guys get to know Dan's a great guy. You'll not meet a better person than Dan, good friend of mine, and also does some music promotion and EMT. He does it. It's got a lot going on in Dan's world, and great guy. He runs Farm to Bottle and some other festivals up in Ohio, in the Middleton and that general area. They got Rock the Block. They got all kinds of stuff going on all year round. So we're going to get him on maybe next week. I want to do an ad, get advertise for it, and get a bunch of people in there, because Farm to Bottle is one of the best festivals. It hasn't been around a long, long time, but in the short time it's been around, it's shot to the top. It's a lot of people's favorite. Um, it's that and Summer Jam are my two favorites by far. I like the Arkansas one too. Had a great time there. But with Farm to Bottle, everything's in one spot. You got camping, you got the stage, you got the vendors, you've got the enclosed pavilion, you got covered pavilions that aren't enclosed, you've got picnic tables for kids, lots of games for them to play, camping everywhere. It's awesome. It's just kind of like the Woodstock of the moonshine world. It's a lot of fun. But we'll definitely have Dan on soon. We were talking tonight about it, and definitely going to get him on here soon and promote that. And would like to meet a lot of you guys there. It's up in Ohio, so some of you guys are too far up north to make it maybe to some of the Carolina and Tennessee shows. Maybe you can make it to to the Ohio show. I know we got a lot of folks in Pennsylvania, all the way up into Maine and New York and Michigan. So if we can get you guys to come down, man, it's a lot of fun. It's awesome. Yeah, I got you, brother. Been making wine a few years now, but the last few months been trying to hand it distilling. Awesome. Drinking some 100 proof sweet feed I made a few weeks ago. Awesome. It does get better. So um, we can get you into making some grain, and we'll get you into making your own sweet feed, and it'll be even better than what you got. Promise you. So great to have a winemaker in here, man. You can distill those wines and make some excellent brandy. So if you can make good wines, and a lot of when you're winemaker and a wine just doesn't turn out like you want it to, distill it and it'll make excellent brandy. So that's what I do. A lot of my wine mistakes, it becomes brandies. Yes, sir. It is that ding ding. You out of here, David? All right, brother. Thanks for dropping in, and this is for you, my friend. 16 inches on your column. That's not too bad. That's good. 10 inch on the wheel arm. That's fine. That's a good size cap, though. You talking about a cap or a column? Yeah, that's a good size cap. Yeah, definitely want to try to get it as low proof as you can. So that column that's coming off the steel, has a little height, so the bubbly foamies don't get up. I like putting a sight glass, obviously, right at the top. Let's see if I can go back to my picture. Yeah, I like putting a sight glass right at the top here. So I can see any kind of foaming. If any foam is hitting the top of this, I'm cutting back. I'm pouring oil right in here to cut it down. Cooking oil. I always have to add that, man, because you always got to have one, fella, But so you can always kind of gauge here, if you're getting some puking action going on. And then from that, this is the phlegmator. So I don't have a lot of height and column there. And that helps me keep my proof down. I used to run one that goes, I still have to support. This is a lot of weight. This Weber won't handle it. A keg still will. Keg, you can sit this on a keg, no problem at all. But on this, I've got a little hook in the ceiling there that I have to run, and I run some supports to it because that's a lot of fucking weight. So, but it works. It works really well. But yeah, I have this here, and it's very short. And like I say, I can run, straight through 125, 130, and then I can start turning this on, and I can increase that 125 to 130 to probably about 165, just running straight through here. But if I run it with the deflegmator turned on and double distill through the infuser, after that, it gets double distillation, just like a little mini thumper. Then I can get it on up to 180 plus 187. I think it's probably about the highest I've got. I think I had maybe a little bit taller set up here. It wasn't so short from here to here. But yeah, I may end up making some of those one day. So if someone's interested, I'll be able to make one for them. It ain't cheap though. All those little parts, they're expensive. I might try to do them in copper. You're a welder. Who would have thunk it, man? Who would have known? Yeah, you'd probably scoff at my little yes welder, man. But I love that little thing, so I'm proud of it. The 250 amp square wave pulse TIG. It's a badass little unit, man. It's like if you bought that from Miller or from what's the other one? Miller and Hobart, or what's the other one? Lincoln. Those are like $5,000 or $6,000, man. I picked up a little yes one that does it, and it does a pretty good little job. A lot of welders would not like the duty cycle. It's not a bad duty cycle, but it's not. It's like using, I guess, a DeWalt instead of a Milwaukee. Or maybe what's the green ones? The little green ones. No, what's the name of them? The little drills. But anyway, it's like those. Different qualities. But it's a good little welder, man. But yeah, if you can weld, man, you can make some good money on the side. Just going out and buying kegs and welding 4-inch ferrules into the top of them, a couple of 2s into the bottom, one on the front, one on the side, and yeah, you can make pretty good little chunk of change. Buy a beer keg for like $35 on Marketplace, take it home, clean it up. And that's another good use for heads and foreshots is clean up metal before you weld. It's like acetone. But weld you a little 4-inch ferrule on the top of that keg for a little clean out, and have your 2 up here, run your column on, and that way you can get in now that 4-inch port and clean, and little drain port at the bottom, and 2-inch, little 2-inch for a element to go into, and just welding 3 little ferrules on there that probably 7 and 20, maybe $35 worth of ferrule, and that's not cheap. If you buy in bulk, you can get them a lot cheaper than that. So you'd have maybe $60-$70 in all of it, and you can sell them for a couple hundred. Good little hobby, yeah. Get 200-300 out of them. Yeah, he is. So, well, you need to start making some kegs, man. Start doing some stainless work if you got time. I know welders make pretty good money, and they don't generally need a little money side hobby, but it's a lot of fun, and you can help a lot of brothers out at the same time. So, yeah, Wayne's a great guy. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Wayne's a good friend. What's the best way to get nasty green stuff out of a new pot? Good question. White vinegar and citric acid or lemon juice combined will get it out. A little elbow grease if you can see it and get to it and clean it. With something that's not too abrasive, you can get it out pretty well. If it's not coming out, you might have to use a little 3M pad or something. That just don't put too much. You don't want to scratch it up any more than you have to. Because when you scratch it up, you add a lot of surface area, and that's where a lot of oxidation takes place. But generally, once you get it cleaned and seasoned and start using it often, you won't run into a lot of that. But yeah, a little bit of lemon juice and citric acid and vinegar, white vinegar, can clean it out. If it's new, just running that through. You can use vinegar and water with some citric acid and as well mixed with water, and boil it, and run it through. Don't even run the condenser. Just let steam come out and do it outside, because that vinegar can smell out the house pretty badly. But yeah, just do it in the garage or outside. Just make sure you're pointing out with that steam, because that vinegar it'll get in your nose. But yeah, clean it out that way, and then boil some water through and run some steam through and clean it. And that a lot of times will get most of that out of there. And then if you still have some in there, maybe have to go to something a little bit more aggressive. But a lot of people say add peroxide, and you really don't want to do that. It really it's a catalyst, and it super oxygenates, and it makes those acids a lot stronger. And it can add like acid etch or copper, and it really kind of defeats the purpose, because it'll make the surface rough. And once it gets rough, it oxidizes and turns green even quicker the next time. So it's best just to try to remove it with vinegar at first, if it'll work. If it doesn't, add a little citric acid to it and scrub it out. And if you can get to it, if not, then you just have to boil it out with the acid, with the vinegar and citric, and clean it up that way. Yeah, Wayne's a great guy. You've tried vinegar. I should read ahead. You've tried vinegar and peroxide. And that didn't phase it at all. Is this inside your worm or inside your pot? And can you get to it? Well, I mean, you're going to have to boil it out. I mean, you're going to have steam coming through, and actually literally boil it out and run it and get that heat going. Um, so if it's inside your pot and you can get to it, yeah, manually clean as much as you can. But you definitely don't want it, any distillate that comes out with any kind of color at all. You don't want that on your pot because yeah, any colored distillate, any kind of greens and bluishes coming out of your copper, yeah, you don't drink that. That's the only downside uh, to it is the maintenance for your copper. But once they get good in season, they're not as much. You get them the color of an old penny, and they don't turn green as much as often, and they get kind of seasoned in, and you keep the outside polished up if you want to, but the inside let it oxidize with and let it turn kind of like a dull penny, instead of the greening. Once it gets green like that, though, you got to get it off. And if you can get your arm down in there and clean it, absolutely, anytime, brother. Yeah, we'll get Dan on here this next week, hopefully, and we'll schedule maybe Wednesday or next Saturday, depending on his schedule. But I want to get the ads out. I want people to see and know about the festival day and time, and it's a 2-day event. They do have a flyer out right now talking about Rigsby, who's on Ian's podcast that we were talking about. Still talking last week. Had him on. He's a co-host on Still Talking. Rigsby's going to fight box Matt Brown at Farm to Bottle, and that's going to be on Saturday. But it's actually a 2-day event, Friday and Saturday. So it's great. Got to make plans to be there. That and Summer Jam are the two best. If you don't have time to go to a bunch of them, which unfortunately I'm not going to be able to do this year. Next year I'm going to be more retired than this year, so maybe. Um, I still got a lot of loose ends and things I got to do. Um, Lots of loose ends and things to do, but yeah, definitely. If you're going to make it to one or two, you got to make it to those two. That's really the best. As far as people wise, there's probably more people from the show and stuff if that's your boat, and more people there maybe at Summer Jam. But I think as Farm to Bottle, I mean, it had a huge turnout. Um, but maybe not as many people from the show. But once it grows, it's going to bring a lot more people from the show on there if that's what you want to meet. But yeah, it's for what it is. It's my favorite. It's I like having everything right there. Don't change the menu, Dan. I like it right where it's at, man. It's perfect. We were going to have it at a nicer facility, but I love this. Everything's right there. I wouldn't change a damn thing. It's got everything in the makings to make it very, very one of the best. That's one of the downsides to going to Maggie, in my opinion, is the hotels and the accommodations can get a little bit pricey. I mean, that town, they don't get a lot of things going on. So during that weekend, everybody prices up their stuff. They collude, they work together, they all jack their prices up to double, triple. And to stay a few nights, it's 600, $700, and I can go to Dan's and camp for 50, so for 100. So yeah, so that's for expense wise, and it's a lot of fun too. I like to camp, and I like to camp and drink and have a fire and get drunk and roast hot dogs and make s'mores and shoot your shit, and it's a great time, man. Awesome, man. Well, if you don't want to build them, you can get on old Phil Billy Moonshine. He's got all what you need. Him and Ian working it up every day. They can put you in something pretty cheap, man. Join the militia and let them know that you're on there. I think you're already in the militia though. Yeah, just let Phil Billy know, man, and they can work you up a deal. Hell, drive up there, save yourself some shipping, and pick up some corn while you at it. Yeah, tomato juice works well. The only negative side to me with tomato juice is it or tomato juice or paste is it'll have vinegar, a lot with it. I'm a anti vinegar. I don't like using the white vinegar. I don't like using it. Citric acid is what I use because I don't like those acetobacters, because those flies. I got flies in case you hadn't noticed, and I deal with the fruit flies and the freaking moths, and so that's my dilemma. I'm the moth man, I guess you could call me too. There's motherfuckers all over the place down here. But has vinegar in it. So anytime that you're using vinegar to clean stuff, you really, really want to rinse the hell out of it and get all those acetobacters away. But tomato juice probably not as concentrated in acid as like a full on lemon juice or like a citric acid. Um, or you can get some of that vinegar stuff from Home Depot and Lowe's, that really high strength vinegar, and try some of that on it. That's really, really strong acid. Don't use it for anything food, or yeah, don't pickle, don't can with it, but it's good for like cleaning stuff up. They make a really high vinegar. It's very acidic, but it's good for cleaning stuff like that too. See, there's moss. So when you see me doing this, I'm not just some crazy man swatting at imaginary bugs. All right? What's up, Joseph? You had me looking for Lita. I'm like, who's Lita? I didn't see Lita. Who's Lita? Uh, well, did it steam out when you got it real hot, Karen? Was it steaming? And can you get inside of it? I mean, is this green inside your pot, or is it inside the worm that you can see, or flat top beverage? Yep. Yeah, keg works good. This that's one of the things I like about the football beverage is it's got that sloped lid, and that helps a lot. That really helps a lot with foaming and stuff, and keeps it from puking over. Whereas a flat lid doesn't have the ability to do that. That's why most stills have that cape coming up like that, is to help with the foaming. And usually, you have your water level down here to where you don't really have to worry about it anyway, foaming up here. But it gives you just that little bit of extra. Damn, that's a mosquito. Gotta get that fucker out of here. Fuck, I missed it. Hope it dies in the light. Man, there it is. Missed it. Fucking, I hate mosquitoes, man. They'll eat me up. I have big whelps all over me. That's one good thing about this monitor, man. They fly like right to it, man. They love that big white screen. There it is. Back over here. Yeah, that's in the light now. Light bulb will kill that motherfucker. Yeah, copper sulfide is the green. And it can kind of look blue when it comes out. Kind of looks bluish green. Yeah. And definitely don't ever drink anything coming out of your still that's like that. Don't. I mean, you can save it and use it for cleaning your still. So like if you get some distillate that comes out that's blue, that run's gone. Okay. Other than scorching, I should add that to my thing when I say the only thing you do to ruin it, scorch it, or let it get copper sulfide buildup in it and sulfates. But um, what you can save that, and anytime it gets green again, use that and run it through, because a lot of times the alcohol will help dissolve some of it as well. So, but you can save it, just mark on it, put the skull with the crossbone, do not drink, kind of like I do my heads that, or you can put some food coloring in it, make it blue. That way, or it's going to be green anyway coming out, right? So add a little food coloring to it so hey, this is the blue stuff. You don't want to drink this, the green. So that'll help you. And I do that with my heads. And I use for my cleaner, I make it look like a Windex. Still not on Facebook. All right, brother. Well, that's the best place to pick my brain. Yeah, man, them fruit flies, they're bad, man. They are a menace. They're the worst. Yeah, yeah, definitely run the vinegar. Yeah, I hate the fruit flies, man. I got airlocks full of them. There's that fucking mosquito. Yeah, get on that light bulb. Get up on that light bulb. I hope I can get him. I hate mosquitoes. Oh hell, didn't scroll down. Lita Ford, hell yeah. I've seen Lita. She's awesome. Never heard an Ozzy did that close my eyes forever song. That was a jam. Yeah, Lita rocks, man. She's flying away. Go get a hand. Go buy a hand. Yeah, she takes care of them. Man, they fly. If there's one within a mile or a tick, if there's a tick anywhere around, it'll find me. I was at a 4th of July party with a bunch of my buddies. We all getting drunk, well, buddies and families, kids and families running around. And there's probably 100 people there. Everybody getting drunk, drinking shine, and shooting fireworks off. He's no longer with us, the dude that had the parties. Um, Great guy. We out in he had a big, probably 4 acre, maybe 5 acre yard around his house. He rented it, and we had a big party there every year. It's out in the country, and we had a big party. He had a few outbuildings and stuff, and we were all having a good time, man. Somebody's like, "What the hell?" I looked down, and I had on I had khakis on, and there were fucking ticks all over my pants, all up into my shirt. I probably had 30 fucking ticks on me. And everybody saw that and they're like, oh shit, calling their children, come over and they picking through their heads. And I think maybe one or two other people had one or two ticks on them. And it's like, I was the fucking tick magnet, man. And it'd be all right if I was a chick magnet, but I was a tick magnet. Oh man, I was covered in them. So mosquitoes or ticks, anything, they're all over me, man. I don't know. They say it's the blood, your blood type, and something, the pheromones and stuff you kick off, and I don't know, but they're attracted to me for some odd reason. Anytime, brother. And got any questions? Definitely don't hesitate to ask. But I think a lot of the questions that you will deal with will be a lot of repeat questions, and I'll answer them every time they get asked. And it's don't get frustrated because everybody has the same questions. And I've been thinking about maybe cutting and pasting a lot of answers, um, so I can get through a lot of these questions quicker, and I can just paste answers and or just put them up, in a presentation thing, so you can read a little bit, make a chart out of it, so I can get through a little quicker because I want to try to answer everybody's questions. And so far, I get behind sometimes. Yeah, me too, brother. Sometimes I get behind a little bit, maybe 20, 30 minutes, but by the end of the show, I think I've answered most all the questions. And if I don't, now's a good time to ask them because I'm not seeing any new questions. And if I miss your question, I missed it. Or if I didn't give you an answer that you understand, which is also possible because I tend to ramble, ask it again. Don't hesitate. I'm not going to get mad for questions. I won't get mad if you ask me the same question 10 times. I'll try to think of a different way to answer it to help because I'm not the best teacher. I know sometimes I word things a little funny and sometimes not the best way to understand. And if I do, I talk in circles kind of, and sometimes I'll get off on a fucking tangent, man. And I'm sorry, but my mind wanders kind of from one thing to the next, and you never know what I'm going to say next. So, but it's a lot of fun. I enjoy being on here, and Heck yeah, man. That's what it's all about. And not just newbies, it's good for intermediates. You'll pick up something and learn something. I do. I've been doing this over 50 years and I learned something, well, close to 50 years. And I learned something almost, new every time. I learned this week about what phimosis is, phimosis, thanks to our troll. And, I never knew that was a thing. If y'all Googled it, I guess y'all got a pretty good laugh. But trolls like that doesn't bother me as much, and I'll never ban somebody like that. That's funny shit. That's funny as fuck. I've never heard of that. So yeah, that kind of stuff I'll let slide. But the the racist remarks, yeah, they get the ban hammer. I can't can't have that. That's yeah, that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down into either. But this not the place and time. You don't. No, not here. Save that shit for, if you want to talk to your buddies that way, I guess you do what you got to do. You got a freedom of speech, but on here, you don't. So there's certain things that you can say on here that'll get you banned. Can I come run your match? What's wrong, Tony? What's up, brother? You ain't down the weather, are you? You just want me running for you? You can sit back, smoke a big fatty while I do it. Tony's no bud. He's been around a while. What you got mashed in, Tony? Yeah, it's actually well, if you can at the top, do you see where it says Distilling 101 in the Facebook page? You can go to there and like you can hit the like button, but over to the right, you have to hit the three dots to follow. I need followers. So all you guys and anybody that's watching, if you could do that on Facebook, go to the Distilling 101. There should be a link there. I see a little different page than what you do. Let me yeah, right at the above to the right, you'll see Distilling 101 podcast page. Just click on that and you'll see the three dots to the right of it. Just click follow for me and hit that like button. That helps too. But I need more followers in there, and you can see a lot of the old stuff there. Um, and I don't remove it, so I'm not sure if Facebook does. I'll have to look and see. But we also have it stored on the militia page if you want to scroll through, but you have to scroll through a lot of comments and stuff to get there. But like on Philbilly's YouTube page, it should be saved on there, but I'm not sure how far. I have to talk to Damon and see how far they save them back. But I'll look on the Distilling. Let me check the Distilling 101 page real quick while I'm on here. I mean, I'm on it right now, so uh, I can open it. That it's actually a public group type thing. So yeah, just click Distilling and it should pop it up. You don't even have to really go to the page if you're watching it on Facebook. You can just click that podcast and there's three little dots. It'll say like and man it or something. It's hard for me to see what you're seeing. It says, yeah, overview, live chat, your replies. You may not even see the same thing, but you'll see a bell, a little check mark for unfollow, follow, and then three dots. Just click that and you can save the videos and save it and it'll have a link. But also you can follow there and copy the link and go to it directly. But yeah, need to get as many followers on there as possible. But on that page, let me scroll down and see how far it goes back. So I'm at April, February. Yeah, I don't January. So this is going back to when I was interviewing master distillers when I had Roger on. So yeah, it's going all the way back. So yeah, it's saved on my page here. So yeah, go to the Distilling 101 podcast page on Facebook. They're for sure saved on there, and you can go back and check. It's great for reference. And one thing that I'm going to try to do is do some short videos. They're not going to be lives, but they may be shorts, and they're going to be titled. That way, I can answer specific questions that I get a lot. Um, for example, a perfect question like the green and clean up the green and how to clean it, how to do your first sugar, how to make a good sugar wash, for your first run, and things like that for basics for beginners and stuff. So I'm going to try to do some short videos, and when I do, I'm going to also put those on that page, and they'll probably go under reels, maybe. So I'll add some reels there, and put them under reels. Let's see, or videos. I think all these post under videos. So yeah, I'll probably post them under reels and put them on the Facebook reel thing for everybody to watch, because those are generally a little bit shorter. And try to keep them pretty short and to the point. That way, if you have a question, and see the problem with George, I love watching George at Barley Hops. But if you had a specific question, you couldn't ask him like here. And B, if you wanted it answered, you'd have to watch all kinds of videos to get the answer to the question, right? Great source of information. Love George, does great, helps so many people out. And I want to kind of do the same thing as well. He's alive, but he's not doing the videos anymore. I think he sold his all his prior work and has a non-disclosure agreement. And I don't know if he's going to do them again. I'd say the NDA may be up and done by now. That's been years ago. But maybe he's just comfortable and he's like, hell with it, I'm done. But I'd love to contact him and see. Maybe I'll do that. Rum at 1070. Nah, 1070 is fine, man. Well, anywhere between 1060 and 80, you're good. I tend to go 1060 on my grains to 1070 because conversion wise, but yeah, your rum will be fine. You could do it 1070, 1080, 1090 even, to get more production, because rum's a little bit different than like a grain bill. Rum tends to be more sugary, a little bit more hot than like a whiskey or a bourbon or something like that you're going to do an all grain with and maybe even age with. But no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Okay, let me just think. I've got a rum. Why am I reading the little one when I on the screen? I've got a run for many at 1070. Do you think I should be higher? No, that should be fine. You could go a little higher next time, but like I said, just keep your recipe. And next time, maybe a little more molasses or maybe a little more brown sugar if you want to bring it up. I'm running it mostly for I don't get that object. I don't get that picture for some reason. Mostly for the blank. Would you save the room off the first run, or would you add it back and rerun it with a dunder? Good question. You can actually run it again with the dunder that's still in the pot. No, it's fine. I'm reading it just fine. So, but the object, the picture, I didn't get it. It just says OBJ on mine, so it doesn't show me that. That's an easy one. Well, sugar washes go quick. But I've had some 3-4 day grain fermentations too. So yeah, they can go pretty quick if you get everything just right. But you want your brandies and stuff to take a little wine yeast and temperatures that they ferment at. You want to kind of go a little lower temperature and a little longer period of time. Would you save the room off the first run, or would you add it back and rerun it with the dunder? If you've got everything in your pot, just stop. When you get done with the first run, you've taken off the fours and heads, stop it, let it cool a little bit, open up your valve, of course, so it doesn't implode, right? So you don't have a vacuum, you don't have a lot of pressure. That way, when you take off the cap, you take that cap off, You can dump it all right back into the pot, put your cap back on. Now, if you're using paste and all that, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to find a better way. Maybe you can put a valve on it to open up to keep it from imploding, and also get your funnel to stick in that valve and pour stuff back in there slowly. That works. That way you get dual use out of it, kind of like on mine with the little um, with the funnel on it. So that works out well too. Just get you, a 1 inch gate valve or a 3/4 inch gate valve or something on there, and put on your lid, open it up when you're done. That way you don't get implosion, and you put your funnel in there and pour it back in. Oh, brother. All right, man. Thanks for tuning in. Don't work too hard, brother. But yeah, just rerun it that way, and yeah, rerun it with the dunder like that. Keeps that flavor profile. So what you don't want to do is run it and then proof it all down with water, dilute every flavor that you had in it, and then put it back in a fresh still and run that. And you've just diluted all your flavors. So if you put it back into the dunder, that's kind of like they do cognac. They keep running the cognac that way. Well, that way it gets such rich flavor. Try that with your rum. How it works out. But yeah, put it back in. And do you use a dunder pit? You have a dunder pit where you put all. Basically, dunder is a back set. Back set is something we use in a sour mashing. Dunder is something you use it's kind of like a sour mashing for rum, you could say, where you keep putting this dunder in there to keep the flavor, the molasses, the thick richness, and the grunge. And it's so for those that don't know, read about it. It's in the Caribbean they have these dunder pits, and sometimes they've been known to throw an animal or something in there to enhance the flavor. It gets kind of wild, man. It's crazy. I don't think California. I don't think they're going to be able to. I know of one place out in California that had a dunder pit, and they were going to do some rum thing, and the health department came in there and said, "No, no, no, this doesn't meet the standards." So yeah, but it does make for some interesting, definitely good flavored rums. But I don't know about throwing animals in there, man. It's a bit much, but it's what they do. I do, brother. Hey, those little butterfly valves ain't cheap though, man. They about $35 a piece, and they're 2 inch. But yeah, man, more power to you, brother. If you can weld, I can. I've got so many different ideas that I'll never do, and you know, but definitely, make something like that. It works beautifully, man. And making some shotgun condensers, if you can weld and especially with copper, start getting into the copper stuff, you can make a pretty good little side gig, man. But yeah, it works real well. It's awesome. I mean, I came up with the bypass too, which is a basic. I guess you've seen it on a lot of the jar rigs and stuff. I came up with that a long time ago, brainstorming, just get stoned, try to figure out what was making my problem and how I could fix it, and I work it around, and create a workaround. And that I figured out that that's what was happening because when I didn't use the thumper, I didn't get the blending, and the smearing. I called it blending because I didn't know there was a term called smearing. And I fucking first started getting online and talking to the distiller groups and stuff, and I talked about my blending. They're like, "Oh, you must mean smearing." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." So I got browbeaten by the bitches, but yeah, smearing. I called it blending. But I noticed a lot of blending, when I used my thumpers and whether I put tails in there or not, it was accumulating and I was getting that flavor and it was carrying forward further than it should have. So I came up with the bypass and worked that on there, man, and hearts and heads and 4 shots straight past. When I got to the hearts, through the switch and sent everything to the thumper from the hearts and night and day. So that was my first contribution to the shine world, other than my wonderful moonshine. Yeah, you're not gonna throw any of your kittens in your dunder pit. Come on, man. You need some dunder kit. No, but I don't know what they throw chickens and shit in there, and maybe some rabbits and shit. They're throwing some fucking mammals in there and shit, man. It's crazy. But yeah, it's pretty nasty, I'd imagine. They say it makes pretty good rum. I don't know. But I do know, like in Mexico and some place where they make the tequila, they suspend a turkey or something in there like that, or something, maybe chicken. So there's a lot of, and I think that might be. I think one of the reasons they might do that, and that's just my guess, but I think maybe some of the oils that drip off that chicken while it's in there help keep it from foaming and puking on them, and they figured out that doing this was better because of that. Maybe who knows what originally necessitated them putting the chicken in there like that. Yeah, and tequila. Thanks, Junior. Appreciate it, brother. Yeah, it's been a few years in the making. What's that guy on Deadliest Catch? Captain Phil. I don't know if he was saying it. My beard looks like he is. Yeah, India has them. They have them in the Caribbean too. Yep, they are nasty. Definitely nasty. But they say those flavors, man, makes them interesting. Just like some of those mashes you have. Sometimes, I mean, they'll be like, you get a lot of butyric and other organic acid. I forgot earlier when I was talking about different organic acids. There's all kinds, but butyric acid is another organic acid that's formulated in the fermentation and distillation process, but you get it when you distill. But when it's fermenting, you get the butyric acid and it smells like vomit. So this is one of those vomit things. So, it's interesting how so many different influences can change and increase, like a lactic acid, or a butyric acid, or some of these other acids that, you're doing the same thing you did before, so something's different. What was the, you know, different thing that caused it to happen this time and it doesn't happen other times? It's one of the many wonders. So that's why a lot of people, when you get to the point where you want to do it as a business, you really have to take it a little bit more to a scientific level, to get consistency. That's the main thing when you go commercial, is consistency. You want every bottle to taste like it doesn't have to be the best, but it needs to be consistent, because best is subjective. Some people think it's the best. Some people say it's shit. But as long as there's people that like it and it's consistent, they'll continue liking it. So maintaining consistency and keeping notes and keeping temperatures and pHs, and you don't have to be scientific with it, but the more scientific that you can get with it, the more consistent your results will be. I won't say they'll be better, but you'll be more informed and you'll be able to troubleshoot and make things better. But it won't necessarily make it better, but learning it will help you um, correct some mistakes to make it better. And consistency, which is the most important part when you do decide to go. But when you do get that vomit smell, don't run it. Let it run its course. The rotten egg, and that's just sulfur, and anytime you get that rotten egg and feet smell, that's when you really want to make sure that you have some, if you're not having copper set up, have some of that copper mesh in there, like I was talking about, that you can see in this image here. You can see, yeah, well, you can see I've got copper here. So the second distillation comes up, any sulfides it picks up, eats up any of them. You can also put it here to take it out as it's going, if you're going to strip first. So you put your copper mesh, roll it up, and shove it in there, and make it big enough to where it won't fall out. But with a 2-inch, you're really not going to cut off the vapor. But I've seen people ask, can I shove this copper mesh in a tube? And I guess they're talking about a 1/2-inch tube. So no, you really don't want to shove a lot of this copper into like a half-inch tube, and because what happens, you can get some stuff puke up into it and kind of fill in some of those gaps, and it doesn't get a lot of vapor through, and it can explode, man. So I mean, this is a serious thing we're doing here. So you can't just lapse days go just say, "Oh, I'm just going to do this." Because I had somebody ask that question or ask it in one of the groups. I think it was asked in one of the groups, and they were going to pack mesh at like a half inch. So definitely, if you're going to watch, no. But if you got a 2 inch tube, you got plenty of air for it to get around, so it can still, it's not cutting off the flow, or it can puke into that so much it'll never cut off that flow, right? But you have so much surface area and all this that it'll remove a lot of those sulfites. So anytime, I'm glad you mentioned that. Anytime you get an egg smelling or sulfury smelling, make sure that you got that. If you get the vomit smelling, that's the vomit is a butyric acid, and you just have to let that run its course. So let it go, and it might take a week or two, but eventually it will become less. I mean, it may never totally run out, but it's not going to be, like this. Whoa. So let it run its course. And some of those vomit ones actually made some really sweet distillates once it ran its course and got distilled. It had some really good flavors. And I've also ran it while smelled like puke, and it tasted like puke. So wait it out. It's just one of those things. You just have to grin and bear it and wait it out. Um, Oh yeah, yeah. As long and your sight glass is big enough to where as long as it just has able to airflow. You don't want anything to constrict your airflow too much. And that's one of the beauties of using this 2 inch, is you get a lot of vapor velocity. You get a lot coming off this, and you get through this 18.5 gallon. I run about 16, in it, and 15, 16, and no problems, no puking problems. And you can blow it through here a lot quicker than if you got like a half inch on top of the same size vapor. It's going to take you longer to run. It's just all there is to it. And when you do, you really need to put that copper, um, in your thumper. If you got a thumper, you put it in there, but you can't put it in some place where it's going to restrict your flow. Now, also, we talked about rashing rings, where you can take this copper pipe and cut them little 1/4 inch sections and deburr them, and just throw those all in together, a bunch of copper rings. Those work real well together. And that's what he's talking about, cut up pieces of copper. You can also there's how the gaskets go on these sanitary gaskets. They make a gasket with a screen, and some of it is like a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch webbed screen, and you can put that like right here, and it makes a gasket too, but it's a screen on the middle of it where it's normally hollow. There's a little screen, so you can use one of those here and just pack it full of copper, and that screen will prevent any of your copper pieces from dropping all the way through. So that works just as well. But the mesh does have a lot of surface area, and it's pretty cheap, and you can get it. And I just roll it up, not real tight, loosely roll it, and just so your vapor is going through it, and all that will the sulfides bond to the copper. They like, the outer valence of the electrons will make it bond to that copper more readily than it wants to be in water. So that the it'll bond pretty readily to that copper. All right. With that little note, I guess it's about time to call tonight. I hope everybody has a great rest of your weekend. And thanks for tuning in on a Saturday night with me. And sometime next week, hopefully Wednesday or Saturday, we can get old Dan on here. I want y'all to meet Dan. He's a great guy. Just started distilling and learning quick. He's an EMT. He's had a lot of science and in college and stuff. So he understands a lot of this, the science talk, and he's hit the ground running, man. He's making some pretty good stuff. He sent me some distillates that he's made, and he's doing good, man. He's making some really good stuff. So definitely look forward to. Well, I'll tell you what, Brian, is if you go up here and you hit the follow button, and if you're in the militia, but I mean every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 o'clock, if you don't see a notification come up, you can just go into the Distilling 101 page. That's why I want you to all everybody to join there. You can pick it up there. You can pick it up at the militia page. You can pick it up on the Moonshine Militia on Facebook. You can pick it on the Moonshine Militia podcast page on Facebook. You can pick it up on Fieldbilly Moonshine. Uh, you can pick it up on Moonshine Militia YouTube page. You can pick it up on Fieldbilly Moonshine YouTube page. You can find us on Twitch under Moonshine Militia and on Kick under Moonshine Militia. And when we figure out Rumble, we're on Rumble on Moonshine Militia. So um, maybe I'll make a link to all those different places. But the best place to get it is on the militia page on Facebook or the Distilling 101 podcast page. So if you go up and hit the notifications, you'll get a notification every time I go live. And that'll be not just me. That'll be, Lisa when she does her lives on Thursday. I'm not sure if her and Mark stream to the 101 page on Monday or not, if they just do that through Mark's. I'm not sure, but they'll post a link on the militia page regardless. But yeah, you can pick those up. You can pick up the Friday night shit show. Um, and if we decide to add some other stuff, we may there's some talks about doing some maybe canning stuff and and preserving and off grid living and that kind of thing. So we want to try to promote educational content and it's good fun stuff, stuff everybody wants to learn and know about and share and everybody has some knowledge of. Everybody has this certain thing that they love to can, and I know Damon loves canned okra. So when you meet Damon, send him a little jar of snotty canned okra. He'll love you for it, man. Trust me. But with that, y'all have a great rest of your weekend. We will see you Wednesday, and look for an ad. I'll try to post it through most of the groups and on the podcast page and the militia page, 100% for sure. But we'll get old Dan on here this next week, and we can talk about farm to bottle and some of the other stuff that he does, as well as answer some questions. It'd be like when we had Big Easy on and sit and have a few drinks and chat and have a good time. So tune in. It'll be either Wednesday or Saturday, but regardless, tune in. We'll see y'all. Night, Lisa. Night, everybody. See y'all Wednesday. Shine on.